Hello, welcome to Style Esports Season 14. We're getting into some of the last weeks that we're going to be playing. It is going to be a nice night of Mythic Rising versus Call It Karma. It's going to be casted by me, Inigo Montoyas, and a little bit part of your host, Llama here.
Woo woo, yep, here we are. It's back. And if it feels like deja vu, it a little bit is. We just saw Mythic Rising playing last night here on Style as well.
Yeah, yeah, it's going to be good to see them playing again for the next time. Draft Law is still unfortunately down right now, but we do have Pro Draft coming in clutch right now. And we already have some bans coming out. Call It Karma, banning out the Maokai, Lilia, and Renekton, while Mythic Rising has banning out this Aurelion Soul, Misfortune, and now we're waiting on that third ban. We have seen Call It Karma actually practicing that Aurelion Soul for this game, so it would have been interesting to be able to see that out.
Yeah, I didn't know if it was going to be enabled. I feel like a lot of amateur leagues right now have it disabled at least like till the end of the month. But yeah, with all the bugs, like it was even disabled today on the Riot end of things. So I'm kind of surprised to see that it is still on the table. And like you mentioned, something that had been practiced. But yeah, we're going to be seeing that on the bench. And it doesn't look like champion portraits are working either here on our spectate end. But I mean, it's hard to tell when something's locked in or not, Inigo. But it's looking like a Zac is a first pick cover. Another strong jungle pick looks like might be that primary take-up.
Yeah, Call It Karma has a few games on that Zac, especially in the jungle position, but I believe there might be a few games on Lazy King as well, so it might be one of those flex picks that they can possibly put around. Definitely interesting to see where that goes, but probably going to go to Savage Kit. So it's a nice first pick that they're going to pick up. And Mythic Rising looking to answer back
Oh
with
my
that
gosh.
mid lane. The Yasuo ends up being the counter here, or not the counter necessarily, but just one of those picks that they put up. Marie Bogus definitely knowing this champion pretty well.
Yeah, Bogus has been showing some aggression here in these last couple of matches. Just last night against Rat Pack, we saw a Zed mid picked up by them, but a Yasuo Diana combo. Look at that, Inigo. That's a mid jungle synergy. Some great pairing there. I mean, as long as Diana's hitting her Moonfall on somebody, that's basically a free ultimate for Yasuo to follow up. So we'll have to see what that means for Call It Karma, how they're going to respond to it. This is another tanky boy getting hovered with the Amumu.
Yeah, it seems like one of those very weird drafts and where, you have two of these tanky boys. Yasuo, if he does end up getting that ultimate down, he does have that 50% armor pen with that ultimate afterwards.
Wow.
So it might be one of those things that Yasuo's ultimate is going to be a very crucial point in this game, being able to, just melt down those tanks in these later fights. So it
Yeah.
will be a nice time seeing them and seeing just if one of them gets fed, the other one just is able to capitalize off of it.
And now as I'm seeing these first three picks, I call it Karma have locked in Zac, Amumu, Wukong. These are three junglers in Ego. But I mean, I don't think that Call It Karma is going to be running a triple jungle kind of game. So when I'm seeing this matchup and even Swain locked in, there's still lots of flex potential. Is this maybe a Zac mid we're going to see from Call It Karma?
Yeah, it might be that Zach mid. It might be the Zach top. It definitely is possibly going in a lot of places. I know one of the members on Call of Karma has games on Zach, I
Yeah,
believe.
Nicholas Johnson. Yeah, that's his
Yeah,
second most played this season, 3.28 KDA, and that definitely could mean that that is a mid lane Zac, and that could be something too that they were expecting, and that's why they picked the Yasuo so early. We'll have to see what Nicholas Johnson can do on this mid lane Zac pick.
yeah. And now we have the answer pick with Swain possibly coming in the bot lane or mid. So we have another tanky boy coming out, just being able to soak up all those tank damage and be able to output his own. Some bans as well, Dr. Mundo and Caitlyn coming out, making sure that those champions don't also add to the mix.
I mean, at this point, I do expect to see the Amumu support and maybe like a Swain bot lane. That can go either in the carry role or in a support role. You can pair it with something like Seraphine and have farming Swain, or yeah, you can pick it with a marksman. So a lot of question marks still hovering around the bot side. And I'm still not sure what these top laners are going to be picking yet. Maybe Wukong top. I mean, could be Wukong jungle with a Mumu support. Like, there's lots of flexibility. So the second half of bans feel like there's still kind of unsure, and we're seeing top lane and marksman's both getting banned away in the second half.
Yeah, Samira and Caitlyn both being taken out. Two of those very good, champions. Samira not quite as shining as brightly as Caitlyn in this newer patch, but Samira still being one of those very deadly threats once she gets that ultimate out. Dr. Mundo and Ornn, two tanks in the top lane as well. So just trying to force that Zac into other lanes or possibly trying to force him into the top, but
Yeah.
we'll just have to see like where these picks come out and what they're answered back with.
My
So
gosh.
Kiana,
Kiana. What is going
okay.
on, Inigo? What is this draft, man? A Kiana pickup now? Is
It's
that saying like is there a
Kiana
world
is
where this is
Varus. Kiana is
Yasuo
Varus.
Diana bot? Oh, it's
Kiana
Varus.
is Varus.
Oh,
Okay, yeah.
okay, okay. Kiana is Varus. Oh, we're flaming the draft now at this point. That is really funny. So I think in draft roll, if you don't lock in a champion, it just gives you a completely random one, and so
Yeah.
that must have been what happened there. So okay, makes a little bit more sense. And now I'm expecting to see Varus and Swain in the bot lane. But I mean, Mythic Rising, they showed like 10 different champions in their match yesterday, and we're seeing another 4 new champions for this squad. These are the same 5 players from last night's draft, but they're looking like a completely different squad with a totally different identity coming to this new series. And it'd be for the best because they got taken down 0-2 last night against the Rat Pack.
Ooh, yeah, definitely an unfortunate time. So maybe it might be one of those games where they're trying to rebrand, find their synergy, and find these champions that they just want to be able to play and ego champ on a little bit. Especially some of these, Kiana, or sorry, not Kiana, but the Varus definitely coming out. Yasuo being one of those champions where you don't play it unless you know the champion pretty well. And now I am surprised that the Olaf doesn't go over to the side of Call It Karma. Mythic Rising actually ends up picking that up, especially with the Yasuo, the Diana, the Swain, just being able to run through those champions. But Call It Karma ended up opting for the Udyr, so another jungler as well. So
Yeah.
it looks like we might have to see where some of these champions
I
end up
think
going.
yeah. Yeah, I agree. As I'm looking at these teams, I still have some question marks, I think, going on. You know, if I was in game, I'd be throwing that question mark ping down and be like, what is happening here? Call It Karma has opted to draft 4 melee champions and Kaisa. And on the other side, we have like 3.5 melee champions, right? Diana, Yasuo, and then the Olaf, and then we have Swain and Varus. So like so much melee, so much brawling, so much team fight and 5v5 out of both of these teams, and so many ult reliant champions thinking Yasuo and Diana and Swain, they need to have ultimates to survive in these fights. I mean, Ragnarok is so key to Mythic Rising success as well, but then you have Zac and Mumu Wukong. So like the same kind of thing. Udyr is kind of the only one of these 10 champions that doesn't just solely rely on their ultimate in team fights.
Yeah, being able to see how these champions play around each other, basically who pulls the trigger first is might be one of the teams that ends up winning the game. Seeing if this Diana, this Yasuo can get onto the crucial members of the time of Call It Karma, maybe getting that Kaisa into into that Diana ultimate, getting the Yasuo knockups and deleting her before the fight even starts. So it will be
Yeah.
one of those games where just the ultimates, as you're saying, is just one of these very crucial parts of all of these team fights once the second, third Drake start coming out.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, team fights are going to be so important, and I know when we're taking a look before fights in Ego, I'm going to be paying attention to who has ultimate and who doesn't, because I think especially with these champions being drafted, it's going to be so essential. Like they slammed the Yasuo Diana 1-2, and so they got to think they can play around this combo. We'll have to see if Call It Karma has a good response to that because they got some wombo of their own on lock and ready to fight.
Yeah, and it looks like Kala Karma is actually. I thought it would have been a different mix-up of champions here, but Udyr looking like he's going to be going in that top lane, Wukong in the jungle, and Zac in mid. So that just leaves a Mumu as the support, as we probably guessed that one.
Yeah, that one
Uh,
we were kind of talking about a little bit there, but still 4 junglers. Like, call it
yeah,
Karma just says, hey, why pick one jungle when you can have 4 of them? We've seen how strong this demonic build is, and I expect a lot of these champions to be looking for that. The Mumu support doesn't quite get enough resources to really have that item, but Zac in the mid lane absolutely could be looking for something like that. Nicholas Johnson on this Zac pick has been showing some different kind of identities with that champion. Most notably recently, still some of that Radiant Virtue, but now that we're on 13.3, I think it is, Radiant Virtue is a longer cooldown on the ultimate, so that might change some of its itemization for some of these players.
yeah, he has been playing it 2 days ago, so he has still been playing that Radiant Virtue for this new patch. So, it may be one of those things where he just continues to pick it, knowing that it's still like a good item. Even with that longer cooldown. But yeah, we'll have to see what ends up happening in this game and what the builds end up being as well. especially opting away from that damage build that Zach is typically known for the past few patches, and now becoming more of that support tank that he was once known to be.
Yeah, some interesting drafts here, Nico. I have no idea how this first game is going to go, much less this series. But this is going to be a great indication to see what these teams are kind of cooking up here. And especially for Mythic Rising, can they do better than the 0-2 from last night? They got a lot to prove this match tonight as well.
Yeah, and so while we wait for these champions and these players to get into their games, we will have to take a small break as we let them get into their 3-minute spectator mode. So don't go anywhere, we will be right back. And welcome back to this game of Call It Karma versus Mythic Rising. So it looks like we're going to have a little stack on the side of Mythic Rising right now. 5 of those members stacking up. And just a casual, 5 point from the side of Call It Karma. So not really trying to risk anything in these early invades. Especially a lot of damage and a lot of early pick potential coming out from the side of Mythic Rising.
Yeah, even Dopamine Andy coming all the way down here from that top lane, Olaf. And they were fishing around a little bit and see if anyone's getting spicy here. But as you mentioned, it does not feel like Call It Karma wants to put too many eggs in one basket early on. Maybe just going to try to get a little bit of early information, do some jungle tracking at the beginning of this game. The ward does go down and it is pinged out, but with no sweepers on board, that will give some early information on where Maniac is going to be starting.
Yeah, and it looks like it won't be too much of a question. Diana definitely needing some of that blue buff potential, just being able to keep up with those abilities. But the side of Wukong actually starting blue as well, so they're going to be meeting on the opposite sides of the map. Or not meeting at all, sorry, pathing towards the opposite sides of the map.
Yeah,
And
and I'm not surprised to see that. I think that Maniac really wants to influence the Olaf lane early. That is, we are looking at some of the stats during the break there on this matchup. That's not very common here. And it is, maybe on paper slightly Udyr favored, but Olaf is a champ that needs early resources to get going. So I think Maniac wants to give some of those resources into that top lane.
yeah, and it's just going to be a full clear from these junglers, so we will see them about probably 4 minutes or so. And yeah, it will be very important for Udyr not to get too low in this fight, especially if that Diana does go all the way top lane and tries to make his life a little bit more miserable for these fights. And same has to go for this bot lane. They have to make sure they stay healthy for that Wukong, who's going to be impending.
Yeah, and meanwhile, like Dopamine Andy does not mind going down a little bit of health because actually gets more attack speed and more lifesteal the lower health he has. So that might be the case, but early level 2, that's already cleanse
Yeah.
use bot.
Yeah, a cleanse coming out, a flash coming out from Varus as well. Not quite dying, but getting very close. Having to use both of those summoners super early, and only the ignite used for the real me. So Amumu just burning that out early. And now Astro has to play super safe in this lane, especially with no abilities left. Or sorry, no spells left.
Yeah, and So King able to get a little bit of poke down, and Real Me does not have an angle anymore. But like you mentioned, 2 summoners for 1 in both of Astros now. This is an immobile marksman that if this lane pushes out and Real Me can find an angle, you could find a great engage. But I mean, look at this. Swain just continues to be chunking down and landing those pulls onto Amumu.
Yeah, I guess that's the difference of the lane. Swain just being able to, continuously poke, same with Varus. While Amumu Kaisa is just one of those compositions where if you're going in, you're hitting the go button.
Yeah.
They don't really have that potential to just continuously poke it out. So, yeah,
Yep, it's either 0
definitely
or
gonna have to be
100, it
watching
feels like, in that bot lane. Yep, 100%.
that. And we already saw early on they are able to get that threat out. That go button does burn to the summoners of Astro.
Yeah, but
So
now
he's
this
just gonna
wave's
have to
pushing
be very
away.
careful.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, the wave's pushing away from them now, and as you mentioned, with these junglers being on opposite sides, they have no safety. Real Me might be looking for something. There it lands.
Yeah, the Q actually ends up hitting, and it looks like he will end up falling to the side of Big Taz. Soj King trying to straight out the real me, but not having enough damage, not having enough cooldowns, and the red buff is the burn down to kill out Soj King, falling 2-0 in this bot lane.
Yeah, now Maniac wants to make something happen mid.
Yeah, Nicholas being caught off guard, not quite having it, but his passive is up, so they will burn that out. Another, ooh,
Can
a
they
very
get it?
close turret shot, almost killing out Bogus, but not quite. And it looks like
No.
they won't be able to get those last 2 blobs, spawning on the side of the turret, so just right outside of the safety marker.
Wow, but ultimately a big win early on in this early game for Call It Karma. 2 assists into Amumu's pocket, 1 kill for both Wukong and Big Taz. When the lane pushed against them and the jungler was nowhere to be seen, that was just dangerous. And as you mentioned, Astro didn't have summoner spells there, Inigo. And because of that, that is just falling for the bot lane, and that early pressure now completely mitigated, and Real Me wants to keep playing aggressive.
Yeah, the real me is just able to have, some of these pushes out. Savage Kit still in the bush, so not quite
No,
sure
there's no play.
exactly how much they're going to be getting away from that.
It's like this
Definitely
is
probably
such a
wasting a little
long
bit of his time.
channel. Yeah, you're right. It's such a long time to commit to the bot side, and finally does recognize that there is nothing there, and just resets and looks for that next rotation. Dopamine Andy did a good job at getting a deep ward, so should be tracking some of this second rotation now from Wukong, pathing top to bottom. And yeah, It looked like they wanted a little bit something,
Yeah,
but the lane state was not in a favorable spot.
yeah. And we do have to see that even though they got 2 kills on the side of Kala Karma, the gold is still even with almost twice the CS going over to Doping Andy over Lazy King. About 12 CS difference in the mid lane right now.
Yeah.
Probably going to be cut down just a little bit with that wave crashing in. But yeah, so the CS is definitely going over to the side of Mythic Rising, just doing a little bit better to keep up with this farm.
Yeah, and even with both of the bot laners dying, Astro still has a gold lead over Taz as well. And look at this poke. As long as they're not getting all in, they're going to get chunked
Ooh,
down.
a large amount of poke going over. Big Taz is looking very, very uncomfortable with that health bar. And it looks like that actually ends up being the opening for the side of Mythic Rising to get this first Drake, this Mountain Drake. So even more of those sorry, even more of that armor and that MR being able to go over to their side. So making sure that it's just a little bit hard to go over. The real me looking very dangerous
Oh.
here. Not having that summoner
Ooh.
actually able to flash out of that potential kill marker from the side of NA Astro. So not quite falling over, but he was playing a very dangerous game going for that bandage forwards. And
Oh,
now
with
we have
Savage
Savage
Kit?
Kit and Nicholas Johnson looking for Maniac here, but it doesn't look
Zach's
like
level
they're going to
6.
quite go. Astro actually ends up getting a little bit too close. And now the knockback going
Oh.
over to him. Let's Bounce comes out and Astro falls again. His flash still not up. Only Cleanse, but Cleanse would not have saved his life there.
Wow, a massive level 6 from Nicholas Johnson getting the play on the bot side, showing why this Zach mid pick was B1. What a great performance early on by getting the play bot side, still punishing Astro without the flash available, and Bogus not able to get too much back in the mid lane.
Yeah, he did one of those great trades where he hits that Q, hits the jump in, and then knocks it up, and Let's Bounce just knocks him back into his team. So it was really one of those CC combos that honestly I have not seen before, but was beautiful to actually be able to see that.
Yeah, execution
And
was perfectly played there, 100%.
yeah, and now we're just gonna have to see if that bot lane can actually catch back up, being down 0-3 so far. Luckily for them, only one of the kills has gone over to the side of Big Taz. So
Yeah.
it definitely isn't end game for them in that bot lane, but it definitely isn't looking very good.
No, not in the best spot, but now level 6, he's seen immune. Here comes the Ragnarok. Lazy King forced to flash. Dopamine Andy uses the ghost and trades flash for it. I mean, look at that gold advantage in the CS department top lane. Already has the Iron Spike whip completed. And I think Olaf's just going to continue to dominate this top lane matchup.
Yeah, now the wave just being not in the best state for Lazy King. He has to keep pushing forward now without that flash as his safety. Diana and Wukong also meeting up here, so it looks like we might actually see a fight very soon. Wukong now spotting out Diana, calling over for help. So Bogus is coming over and making sure that Savage Kid is not going to cry anything in particular. But now it looks like Nicholas Johnson's going to be moving over too. A little bit of poke going over in that bot lane, but a fight possibly breaking out for this Rift Herald, but not quite. All right, Real Me actually ends up getting in for that bandage, but not quite getting the targets he is looking for. Just taking a whole lot of damage for his troubles.
Yeah, Nicholas Johnson not able to match that play as they did not have the ultimate back available. And Diana and Yasuo, both of their ultimate combos, we talked about this being a deadly pairing. And look at this damage
Ooh,
bot
the
side,
ultimate coming
real
out from
me.
bars, but the heal comes out. Real Me lives again to speak. A second time where he has evaded death with almost no health whatsoever. And absolutely is now just kind of one of those superpowers. I don't think this man can actually die.
Yeah, that's a sad mummy, but it's not a dead mummy. Inigo has to reset, and a wave is going to crash. Big Taz going to try to just farm this under tower. Astro and Soj King back to back, not getting those kills on those slivers of health. I mean, this is looking like that undead mummy as it is in the name. I mean, look at that. That's an amazing escape once again from the real me.
Yeah, and we have to see that 2 of those plates have actually gone over to the side of Astros. So that gold is basically all evened up in that bot lane, even with that extra lead.
Yeah, and
So
that's the
now
crazy
the
thing.
real me.
Like just the gold difference here, right? They have 0 kills. Mythic Rising has not killed anybody in this first game, but they have a gold advantage in Ego. They got the Rift Herald, so that's going to be more plates in their pocket. You don't need kills if you can just farm better in every single lane. We're seeing a CS advantage, even just small in the bot lane, but especially in those solo lanes. Mythic Rising really taking it to call it karma just in the CS department at the 10-minute mark.
Yeah, and it looks like it's just going to continue to grow with Bogus actually trying to push forward for some of those plates, but he doesn't realize that Nicholas Johnson and Savage are coming. but will back out, not knowing where
Maniac.
they are on the map just yet. And now
Maniac
Dopamine might
covering
look like
bot.
he has actually caught Lazy King a little bit too far up, so taking a little bit of gold for his trouble. The real me actually ends up going forwards here, but not quite realizing that there was another player in the game. Maniac hitting that ultimate, but not quite
Ooh.
hitting Big Taz as he flashes out, and the real me ends up trading 1-for-1 in that 3v2. So definitely a great trade away for Call of Karma.
Yeah, to go 1-for-1, absolutely a great thing you will take. Soj King did not get the ignite down, and it felt like Astro again burned both summoners almost immediately. But the real me is that able to be killed regardless. It felt like might have been the one living, but now Astro in trouble. Savage Kid has ult.
Yeah, Astro not having those summoners as he had to burn her for the last time, and now Savage Kid ends up catching him. Bogus actually ends up dying in that 1v1 as well to Nicholas Johnson. So Nicholas Johnson really showing off that skill in that Zac matchup here. One of those matchups that we definitely don't get to see often at all. Now Maniac possibly looking for this Nicholas Johnson, but his passive is back up, so he will not actually end up going for that trade.
Yeah,
Now
but what
four
else is up is the
members.
dragon.
Yeah, 4 members going for the Drake, 2 members posturing for the side of Mythic Rising, but it looks like they're just going to give that. Definitely not one of those trades they want to be taking here.
No, not without members on the map. Bogus went down for their first time in this match. And that just means the dragon is going to be claimed. And it is going to be an Ocean Soul that's bringing life to the Rift in this first match.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be one of those, definitely a lot of damage going over to Dopamine Andy there under turret, not having to, or not able to actually trade back anything because of the fear of those turret shots.
No Moonfall, but maybe Nicholas Johnson's in
Now
trouble.
the ultimate coming out on Nicholas Johnson here, having to flash out, but he does have that passive, except this time they have a lot more health to be able to dive that turret. And now it looks like he may end up falling to the hands of Maniac. Both of those ultimates, or sorry, just the ultimate of Bogus being used, but Maniac claims the kill in the end.
Now the Rift Herald being dropped as well to pick up another plate and a half. Maniac and Bogus now in a 2v1. Maybe they can pick up this last plate as well. This would be great. Savage Kit just trying to farm the wave and hold this off with the minions crashing. It will not mean the play for Mythic Rising. Oh, they do get the plate. Bogus is going to take that in their pocket. And once again, I mean, we're still taking a look at this gold lead and still seeing Mythic Rising with a substantial gold lead.
Yeah, NA Astro ends up playing a little aggressive here, and now Soj King ends up going out. The pullback not quite hitting onto Realme, but I was just a oh, I'm sorry. Another fight coming out. Maniac actually finds Lazy King, not realizing that he still does a lot
No
of damage and
flash.
just walks out. Olaf
Wow.
having to make sure that he stays safe. No flash on Maniac, but safety comes from the side of Dopamine Andy.
But now Savage
But
Kit
he
wants to
is not
try.
safe still. Savage Kid trying to meet this man, having the ultimate, and it will mean the difference of life or death there. Maniac not quite being able to live, and now Dopamine Andy having to play a little bit safe. Ragnarok still available for the champion, and he will
2v1?
use it. He is looking for Lazy King, and he will end up catching it late in a Astro. It falls out on the bot side.
Oh!
2 kills going over to the side of Dopamine Andy, but a fight still breaking out in the bot lane. Sage King not having that ultimate as he burned it earlier, and now they will both die for their sins. Big Taz getting some great kills. Sorry, the real me and Big Taz both getting a kill in that fight and taking down Astro and Soj King. So 2 for 2 across the map.
Like you said, across the map, there is action everywhere, Inigo, and an amazing outplay 2v1 from Dopamine Andy is the highlight of that performance. Now with a shutdown, getting extra plates and forcing the teleport out, but it was not without a trade. Mythic Rising fell in the bot side to call it Karma's bot lane. Big Taz and the Real Me out fighting the 2v2 and taking more gold for themselves.
Yeah, it looks like that all-in go button is just being the superior comp in this bot lane. The poking just not quite meaning it if they just keep getting caught over and over by these bandages. The real me have to give a lot of credit for this man just making this lane absolutely unplayable for the side of Soj King and Astro.
Yeah, they don't need flash. They don't need anything. Now Nicholas wants to fight, but might just be a little bit of poke and catching the wave. I mean, Realme didn't even have flash for the fight, but it was not even needed. Bandage toss was enough to get the engage, and Astro had Chain of Corruption and wasn't able to get down. So without that ultimate use and without the survivability from the Swain yet, there's not enough damage from the Demonic Ascension to turn the 2v2. So play around your top side. That's your strong way to play around, but that second Herald is actually going to be claimed from Call It Karma.
And I would like to point out, it does look like Bogus is building Blade of the Rune King. I'm not sure
Mm.
if that's the build for Yasuo.
It's
Um,
what
you
I've
know,
seen is Blade of the Ruined King into a Jack show and just going like a tanky kind of itemization here. You're not going for the crit quite as much, but instead just trying to survive and just auto attack people down and smack them with your sword. So we'll see if that's the
okay.
direction Bogus is going here. I mean, it makes sense because you have so many bruisers across the map, and there's some beefy boys you got to be cutting down from Call It Karma.
Yeah, yeah, it looks like that fight's gonna be coming out again. Nicholas
Oh
Johnson looking
my.
for these fights, and the blobs just healing so much health back. It looks like he didn't even get touched in the end.
Dopamine Andy now.
Dopamine Andy actually looks for this turret, and he will get it first. And now Lazy King is caught in a 2v1 underneath what he thought was his safety turret. Now the real me ends up getting both of those ultimates down. Astro ends up cleansing it and flashing out. Soch King trying to get the kill onto Big Taz, but not quite getting it. And Astro will fall as well. So a 3v2 ends up going for a 2v1, or sorry, 2-for-1 in the bot lane. Now Rift being summoned as well for Big Taz to get some of that gold back.
Yeah, we can't be too surprised, Indigo, about this bot lane. This is now the 9th collective death for Mythic Rising's bot lane here. They are 2-9 in this game. The rest of the map is performing exceptionally well, but ultimately the bot lane continues to fall, but the pressure is traded back in the top side. So Mythic Rising does not have a great success in bot side, but I mean, I'm looking in Dopamine Andy. This guy might be able to carry this game and is trying their best.
Yeah, and we want to point out that although they have 9 collective kills in this bot lane, the gold is just not going to be meaning as much as, that detrimental gold comes out being worth a little bit less, 220 at some point, starts going down to 130 eventually. But yeah, some of these turrets now falling onto the side of Mythic
Uh,
Rising, so they're just trading back this gold 1-for-1 every single time they lose something in a different place. They're getting it back somewhere else.
Dopamine Andy up nearly 4,000 individual gold over Lazy King. It's about 3,500 gold. That's an entire item, Inigo. It's an absolute massive top gap. But like you said, the gold is not reflective of what we've seen in the kill score and now even the dragons. So it's close back and forth now. Radiant Virtue is the choice for Zach, so mythic items getting completed. And like you were mentioning with Bogus, has opted for this first item, Blade of the Ruined King. And when I see that Null Magic Mantle, that's signaling to me this is going to be a Jack Show second, more of a tanky on-hit build that the Yasuo is looking for in this first match.
Yeah, have not seen this build actually put into play, but it will be interesting to be able to see it. And now we will see this Varus actually putting out his items as well, going for this crit build with the Immortal Shield Bell instead of possibly an on-hit build that could have been potentially the way to go here.
Yeah, but
So he's
lots of
definitely
attack
going
speed.
for, yeah, going for a little bit safer pick here.
Yeah, and even the Diana in the jungle. I mean, they are not looking for any kind of tanky demonic build themselves. This is a Nashor's Tooth Rush into what I expect to see as a Hex Tech. And so when you have double AP items there, as well as a completed first item Leontries for your Swain, there is so much damage and so many like threats for the side of Mythic Rising that all these champions are getting big, but Dopamine Andy completely unmatched in the bot side. Another tower will be theirs, and even forcing Nicholas
Ooh.
Johnson's flash away.
Yeah. Nicholas having to flash for his life there after that turret is falling. And yeah, we are seeing no one is actually able to answer Dopamine Andy in the side lane. We saw Lazy King falling for it. Nicholas Johnson now having to burn his flash to make sure he stays safe, but it doesn't mean anything if this mid lane goes a different way. And then a Astro and Soch King falling to the 3 members of Call It Karma.
Dopamine, you're
Both of
strong, but
those
you're not
kills going over to
1v4
Big
strong.
Taz. Yeah, sorry, Dopamine Andy being a strongest member on their team, but doesn't mean he is invulnerable. Now 4 members coming and taking him down to the grave, giving over a great bounty to the side of Big Taz. Now getting 3 kills within the last 30 seconds of this game.
That 3 kills also will mean the bot outer tower, the mid outer tower under fire. Maniac trying to get a little bit of their own jungle back, but all these other members might be collapsing. Diana Yasuo, that was the combo that this composition was built on, and they were not there. You know, Maniac falling too. All of Mythic Rising is falling apart in the mid game.
Yeah, it is just not looking the greatest for them. I thought they might have had this out if they just made sure Big Taz did not get in more of this gold. But it looks like he is just continuously getting a little bit more. Nicholas Johnson actually cutting off a little bit more than he can chew.
Bogus.
We'll see if these blobs are able to get in. Bogus catching a little bit too much, and the TP coming out from Lazy King, keeping his mid laner safe. And now just one member falling, Bogus having to use that flash, and Diana falls for the Sins.
Yeah, all 5 members stayed alive for Call It Karma. I thought they might have overstayed just a little bit. The Zach Blobs did fall, but the champion did not, thanks to the support from Lazy King's teleport. So a little bit of tempo back on the map for Mythic Rising. Just about 90 seconds until the dragon spawns. Baron now available for the claiming if either team is brave enough to complete it. And I need to see this Bogus Maniac combo. They built their team around this. Dopamine Andy trying to be the hero in the bot lane, but where's the rest of the team? Savage Kid is going to join up now. Flashes
Yeah,
forward.
Savage is trying to make sure that his mid top laner stays safe, but is not enough as these flashes come out, and now he finds himself in a dangerous predicament trying to fight this man, but it doesn't look like it's quite going to work out for Dopamine Andy as Big Taz, the massive AD carry, ends up making sure that he meets his fate, doing a lot of the damage and giving the kill over to his teammate.
Where's the rest of Mythic's Rising's team? Like, Dopamine Andy trying to 1v9, takes down one and was fighting 2 more, but all the other members of Mythic Rising were not even on the map yet. It feels like Andy is just in the bot side trying to be the hero, be the playmaker, but the rest of the team is doing nothing across the map. I mean, it's such a massive gold difference in the bot lane. 3,000 individual gold advantage for Big Taz over Astro. And now with this Dragon in 20 seconds, it is going to be Mythic Rising setting it up. But I think every 5v5 team fight is losing right now. And I think that Call It Karma is just going to win this fight. Mythic Rising's got to give it up.
Yeah, it looks like it's not even going to be one of those 5v5s. Bogus stays on the top lane. Lazy King ends up meeting him. And Lazy King is definitely not one of the playmakers for this team right now. So his absence is not that important compared to Bogus.
Yeah, but Dopamine
So it
Andy
looks
is
like
here.
that.
That's the strongest player for Mythic Rising. But
Yeah,
is it
Big
enough to
Taz
shred
being
through
here.
these 3
Dopamine
members?
Andy. And now Savage trying to look into that back line. A lot of the ultimates coming out and the CC immunity, and it looks like it will mean a lot of deaths going over to the side of Call of Karma. Dopamine Andy just being able to shred over these players one by one by one. The flash coming out from Big Taz. He may actually try and get out, but he will get spotted by this. Yeah, he will get spotted out, and he falls as well.
Wow.
4 members falling for the side of Call of Karma, and it looks like Dopamine Andy, the massive player, meaning the big difference for this team fight.
Absolutely. I doubted Mythic Rising. I thought that they were going to get wiped off the map, but instead it was Call It Karma who gets Karma themselves. That 4th dragon from this map, the 2nd for Mythic Rising, is going to be claimed, and they are right on to the Baron. No members in the area even. This is going to be a free Baron pickup now for Mythic Rising. They're still showing signs of hope.
Yeah, definitely one of those very strong showings. As you were saying earlier, Dopamine Andy trying to 1v9 in this bot lane. But now that he has his team behind him, he is able to do so much more with now these extra threats coming out. Diana, Yasuo, Varus, Swain, a lot of damage coming out from these players. So now that's not all focused on him, he's just able to free hit while these other players are, really taking out, trying to make sure Big Taz is not able to melt him down, make sure the real me is melting early in these fights after he uses his ultimate. So,
Yeah.
you're
And
right in the end.
some interesting itemization across the board now. 3 items completed for Dopamine Andy. But as I take a look across some of these other builds, it is a Jack show for Yasuo. But a surprising itemization here from Soj King in that support Swain role. This is a Leandries into Morellonomicon as those first 2 items. Typically, with Swain, you'll see like Rylai's into Zonia's. Just stand in the front, slow the team, and get the damage down. But Swain says, no, I want to be doing the damage. I don't want to be slowing anyone else at all. So this is now the point of the game with the Baron completed and Mythic Rising. If they can group up as 5 and find Big Taz, they will become destroyed so quickly. But now Nicholas Johnson's looking for the engage. Can they find it?
Yeah, Nicholas Johnson looking for Astro here and ends up getting Astro and Bogus in this knockup. Now the real me actually ends up only getting Soj King, but Big Taz going for the back line, trying to make sure that Astro doesn't get out. And a massive ultimate's coming out from Maniac and Bogus here. Big Taz trying to live his life with Soj King. This was a 45 in the end because Dopamine Andy was in the top lane, and a 1-for-1 in the mid. Big Taz falls, but so does Soj King. Both these players now, and Dopamine Andy all by himself in this bot lane, the 45, all 4 and 5 members falling, and now Dopamine Andy just gets this inhib for free. Possibly, maybe looking for a little bit more if the real me is not able to respawn in time.
The last one on the map. Dopamine Andy nowhere to be seen in the fight, but no one else from either team is still alive. Dopamine Andy getting the inhibitor on the bot side in that fight was so close, but it was bogus. It was Maniac. It was the Wombo combo that we were looking for, Inigo. An amazing ultimate there. That last breath brought all the members down. But Big Taz with the quadra kill on the other side. This member is holding on hope for Call It Karma.
Yeah, you're saying we hadn't seen the Maniac Bogus combo just yet, but now seeing it, 3 members, I believe 3 or 4 members, ends up falling fate to that combo. Just ends up being the massive team difference there and makes that fight from what looked like it was going to be a wipe for the side of Call It Karma ends up being a reverse, and now all 9 of those members fall that were in the fight. So one of those things that now it's just going to be seeing if they can duplicate that over and over for the side of Mythic Rising.
And the next time we're going to see that try to get duplicated here, Inigo Montoya's, is at the next dragon. We're less than 90 seconds until the next dragon will spawn. It would be the 3rd dragon for either of these 2 teams. Dopamine Andy tries to get some damage down, but channeling the teleport. And there goes Lazy King. I expect to see the next 5v5 at this dragon. Keep your eyes on Big Taz in this next team fight. That is the carry. That is the big boy for Call It Karma. But if Dopamine Andy can just sit on top of this Kaisa, it's going to be so hard for her to position around the fight. So look for Big Taz, see what they can do here. And if Diana Yasuo gets another combo, I think it's going to be all over for Call It Karma.
Yeah, this Drake coming out, a lot of the vision is going to the side of Mythic Rising, so they're not worried too much about getting that little bit deeper. And now they're going over, getting a few more of those wards, making sure it's a safe objective, but also planning out maybe a little bit of a bush if they can, and just making sure that they stay safe. Dopamine Andy giving Lazy King a lot of damage in this top lane and making sure that he is not able to join the fight. So it might be one of those things where it was a 4v5 before, now making a 4v4 and being that big difference for the side of Mythic Rising to be able to win this fight all out.
Yeah, but they can't just give up the dragon. They are already positioning all 8 members, and not including these top laners, both there. Dopamine Andy doesn't want the fight. They just want the tower. They need someone else to respond to it because Andy's too strong.
Yeah, Lazy King not having enough damage, but the more damage Dopamine Andy takes, the more damage he's able to output onto that turret, so not the best time. But now the side of Mythic Rising ends up putting out a little bit of a bait here. Mythic.
Wait, here comes Nicholas.
Maniac having both summoners here, but doesn't know they're on the ward now, so they will take it out. And now the flag coming out. Soj King ends up getting the pullback onto Savage Kit, and he will fall over. Bogus trying to look for Biz. Taz in the back here. The real me trying to make sure he stays safe, but it doesn't quite matter, as now both these members end up falling. They tried to push forward, trying to make sure that the team stayed distracted, but end up falling for themselves. Big Taz stays alive, but it doesn't mean much as Lazy King falls in this top lane. And now Dopamine Andy has the free look into this base all by himself. The rest of his team ends up coming over. Ragnarok's not available right now, so he will have to worry about the burn of this turret and the burn of Big Taz running out, but the rest of his team is coming to help those siege minions hit those Nexus turrets for the end.
Oh, he wants it.
Dopamine Andy looking for it. The shield coming out. The heal is coming out as well. It looks like he gets so close, but not close enough to be able to make sure he stays alive. And now with the fall of their top laner, they reconsider trying to go for this end.
Yeah, I think that Dopamine Andy might have had it. Felt like a couple of canceled auto attacks or a great reposition from Big Taz. Picks up the shutdown, picks up the 1v1 kill there, but the base is in shambles. Inigo, the top inhibitor, the bot inhibitor, both destroyed. This Baron now on the map. Objective bounties available. Call It Karma is now secluded to their base and needs to try to find some opening, some way back into this game. But with Baron on the map, this is their last chance to make it happen.
Yeah, they have to make sure that they don't get this over for free, or that will mean the end of the game, most likely. So they're going to be forcing this fight early on, making sure that they catch Mythic Rising off guard, off foot. Not having the players to actually be able to fight this. Swain coming over, but it might be a little bit too late. He might not have the vision in time, and this Baron will go over for free. The lack of vision being the difference here.
Wow, an amazing rush out of Call It Karma. They are calling it Karma, but they're not calling it quits. An amazing play to sneak that before the members from Mythic Rising got in position. Now Soj King trying to force
Yeah,
Oh,
the
on the
flash
real
coming out of
me.
Soj King, but not being enough as these Merc Treads just make the difference for that CC not being long enough for the team to come and follow up. So yeah, it's just going to be one of those games and where the side of Call It Karma is just trying to survive until these siege minions go away. But Savage Kit looking very dangerous here. Ooh, Bogus not ending up taking that last breath, making sure that he saves it for these big old team fights and Maniac to be able to use his ult.
Yeah, they just need to try to clear the waves, like you mentioned. And meanwhile, Mythic Rising is trying to break this third and final inhibitor in the mid lane here. This might be the
Ooh.
angle where they need to try to go.
Yeah, the Chains of Corruption being used early on the Shadow, but it looks like it's going to be a massive ult coming up from Maniac, but not quite
The
enough.
Taz.
And now Bogus trying to use his, but doesn't have the knockups for it. And a lot of deaths going over to east side.
Look
Soj
at
King still soaking
Taz.
up all this damage from the side.
Look at
Savage
Taz.
Kid trying to make sure that he gets Soj King. And he will
Taz!
end up falling. Taz doing so much damage, so much absolute doing so much in this fight, being able to kite around and make sure all of these members end up falling. And now four members being alive for the side of Call It Karma, Baron buff being open as well. And so it will be their turn to trade back some of these inhibs and maybe looking for a little bit more.
It's 20 seconds on death timers. I don't think they have the end, but at least can trade an inhibitor. There's no objectives on the map for 2 minutes. Big Taz stayed alive and came up huge in the team fight. 12, 2, and 7 on this Kaisa. This is the carry that your team needed if you are Call It Karma. The game is not over, but is within striking distance now. 90 seconds until the soul, if Mythic Rising can claim it, or they can deny it if Call It Karma can wins it. This game is anything but over.
Yeah, a great fight coming from the side of Call It Karma, making sure that their team was split up. Astro actually ended up using the Chain of Corruption on the Wukong clone, so that was burned out, leaving open almost no safety with his flash still down. And then, yeah, we saw Maniac and Bogus not being able to time up those ultimates together. And so Maniac used his, Bogus trying to get his in tow, but not quite there. Having to build up for that knockup, but doesn't get it before his life expires. And then just the massive difference of Taz making these fights just unplayable without Dopamine and trying to run him down.
Yeah, Taz is so close to having a full build, sitting on 2,000 gold in their inventory, but the dragon is ticking closer every second. Under a minute until this dragon hits the rift, and all 5 members of Mythic Rising are trying to establish the space. This is going to be the massive brawl that decides the game here. Open inhibitors on both sides. All 5 members grouped up now from Call It Karma. If they can find a pick, they can find the fight, but your eyes need to stay on Taz. If Taz goes down, that is the game. Lazy King looking to try to engage.
We also had to look at Dopamine Andy in this bot lane, not worried about this fight, and no one seems to be backing for him yet, so he will get this inhib for
Be
free.
a back door.
Possibly
He's away
looking
with
for a
him too.
little
He
bit
has 2.
more. 2 members now trying to back, but the stops are trying to come out from the side of Soj King and Maniac. And
Oh,
it looks like one
Taz
will
is
end up
back.
backing. Big Taz does back, but we
He
see
was the
Big
fight.
Taz is not quite able to hit the 1v1. Nicholas Johnson trying to flash out. And now he is committing for this turret, and he's doing a lot of damage to Big Taz, but not quite enough. The flashes
soul.
come out, but not enough. Big Taz still keeping both of his summoners, but it will mean that Ocean Soul is traded over.
The Ocean Soul was claimed, and Dopamine Andy almost got the back door. If you get the base, that is worth but 2 Nexus towers. It is now an open Nexus for Call It Karma, and they have no hope now. It feels like if they can crack the inhibitors, there's a chance here. Less than 2 minutes till the Baron, but one mistake, and Dopamine Andy can win the game solo. With that bot lane inhibitor now destroyed, there is a longer timer where these super minions are going to be crashing into the base, and with an open nexus, anyone can try to steal it. So a 5v5 now has to be played perfectly from Call It Karma, or they will just lose the game. But they're pushing up now, and they want to try to take the numbers advantage while they have it. 5 seconds on Dopamine Andy.
Yeah, Savage Kit looking forwards, looking for Soj King here and doing a lot of damage, getting him to half health. Big Taz still having that ultimate and being able to knock him out of the fight before he even begins. But now the ultimate coming out, Big Bogus having to walk out and make sure he stays alive. Dopamine Andy looking for Big Taz, but a lot of damage coming over from Big Taz, and now he ends up falling as well. Another member falling from Maniac, and now the ultimate coming out from Big Taz, making sure that Astro falls like his other teammates. the only member, Bogus, being the surviving member on the side of Mythic Riser, but it doesn't matter. He won't be for long as he falls to the hands of Savage Kid, and a 4 alive for Kala Karma, fire for one fight, and the games end up switching to the other side. Kala Karma taking this first game in their pocket.
They might have had the soul, they might have had the open nexus, but they did not have the game. And Inigo, call it karma, took the numbers, took the fight. Big Taz opened up that backpack, and all the other members jumped on in. Kaisa took that game down, took it into their own hands, and netted them the game one win.
Yeah, a great fight coming out. Big Taz being that massive player we thought they were going to be from the early beginnings of it. And now there's numbers coming out. The numbers don't lie. The damage just being absolutely massive. So it was not the side of Dopamine Andy being able to be the carry for his team, but Big Taz on the opposite end, making sure that Dopamine Andy saw the grave one too many times.
Yeah, that was an amazing game, Inigo, to cast. It was back and forth. I mean, open Nexus. Like, you don't get much closer than that. And it really was the big Taz show all the way through. He's got to rename to Huge Taz because put on a monster performance in that first game.
Yeah, it was just massive being able to see that champion just run through this game. I thought Olaf was actually winning some of these 1v1s. Olaf almost won that top lane one whenever he was half health, took a few turret shots, didn't have ultimate. So I thought for sure maybe he was actually able to win some of these 1v1s later in the game, but the opposite. Big Taz being that massive player, being able to 1v1 this Olaf over and over and make sure that he knew that he had his place to be underneath. So, yeah, definitely going to be interesting to be able to see this game play out for the game too.
Yeah, we will have to see. I mean, I got to catch my breath after that game because that was a nail biter all the way through now. And hopefully, we got two more games of this because this is an incredible series and matchup between these two teams.
Yeah, and now we're just going to take a little break, being able to get these players up for game two, make sure they're figured out. So don't go anywhere right now. Call it Karma 1-0 against Mythic Rising.
I'll just see you in just a moment. Stay where you're at.
All right, welcome back to Mythic Rising versus Call It Karma. Both these teams, Mythic Rising ended up switching sides here, so they will take blue side. Call It Karma will take red. So the first ban coming out, Misfortune being the first pick, and Renekton looks like it's going to be the answer ban for this game. So nothing too different here. Not quite sure, or not quite afraid of that Kaisa coming out again.
Yeah, still similar bans for what we saw in game number one, but the sides have swapped here. So Mythic Rising might have a different B1 pick. I'd be surprised if they take the Zac as a B1 answer. I think ultimately that was a great pick. I actually kind of liked how it turned up in these team fights. They had so much Wombo and CC there and just let Big just free hit there. It felt like that was all Big Taz just being able to smack people down. We'll have to see if Mythic Rising is afraid of it on their third ban or if they're going to give it and just have a better answer. But we'll have to see how Mythic Rising is going to shake it up in the second game because if Call It Karma wins again, that'd be a 2-0 for the squad.
Yeah, and now Lily being banned away from the side of Maniacs and making sure that champion is not given over to him. And Aurelion Sol now taken away from Nicholas Johnson, making sure that he does not get that champion either. We've already seen he's not afraid to pick out these wild things, so definitely was looking forward to that, but sad as always, not being able to see this champion and see its full
Yeah.
glory.
Yeah,
And
now we'll
Kindred,
have to
now another
see
ban too.
how these teams are going to adapt now in the second game. It felt like both teams drafted Big Wombo. Some very interesting team fights there as well. I think ultimately it was Dopamine Andy for the side of Mythic Rising who tried to keep the team in it. Had an amazing topside performance with a counter pick. And we'll have to see what that is. I'm not seeing a third ban here for Call It Karma. Looks like there wasn't any mercy there on the draft. It looks like Maokai is going to be that third ban. And so now we have to see, will Mythic Rising go for more of a split push composition? And as I said, I didn't think they were going to do it. They do exactly the opposite. Mythic Rising locking in Zac as well in B1.
Yeah, they're going to be taking that champion for themselves, but definitely probably not for the mid lane. Well, we'll have to see. But probably going towards Maniac or possibly towards Dopamine Andy. Definitely one of those picks that can go over. And Kaisa, again, the pick for
Oh,
Call of
man.
Karma. So the repeat for Big Taz being able to show out those big muscles on this champion.
Yeah, they say
And
if it
Wukong,
ain't
too.
broke, don't fix it. Two champions looking exactly the same from game number one. It is going to be Kaisa for Big Taz and Savage Kit defaulting back to the Wukong. We'll see if Call It Karma. At this point, I would like to see maybe like a Mumu 3 again. I do think the real me, I mean, looked unkillable early on. Mythic Rising is saying, those are
Yep.
great champs for your team. We want to pick them up, and they're going to lock the Amumu.
Yeah, now four champions from the side of Call of Karma's old 5 point for the last
Udyr?
game being
Udyr?
taken in these first four picks. So only now the last one, Udyr. The last team to be picked
Uh,
up. Oh, not Udyr. So I guess it's gonna go over to Caitlyn, making sure that doesn't get banned in the second phase of bans. Making sure they pick that up a little bit earlier this time. Now
Yeah, because
Caitlyn
that's
and
what
Mumu.
happened. Was that it did get banned away? Call It Karma banned it in that second half of bans, like you were just alluding to there. And so they must like that answer into Kaisa. We didn't see Kaisa till second half either, but I do like the this point where they did pick it up early.
Ooh.
But now that gives another aggressive engage. It might not be the Amumu, but Leona to be paired with that Kaisa in the bot lane.
Yeah, like you said, both these teams picked Wombo combos, and now they are doing it again. Uh, Wukong, Kaisa, Leona, then Amumu, Zac, Caitlyn, just strong frontliners with these 80 carries being able to free hit from the back. And now the Yasuo banned out, but it's just going to be able to see which one ends up pulling the trigger first and gets these crucial CC points onto the other team's carries.
Yeah, and this game number one was really defined by who could team fight better and which marksman did more damage. And we saw the answer to that question in game number one. It was all Big Taz all the way. And in the second game, similar kind of team fights that I'm seeing here. It is going to be some 5v5, some big AoE ultimates, really reliant on these ults to be ready and up for key fights. And now Mythic Rising has to just say that, all right, we thought that we misplayed that 5v5 just a little bit. I'm expecting with this draft to actually pull Dopamine Andy to the fights. Pick something like Ornn. Pick something that can be fighting 5v5, Jax, Cassante, something like that. They are going to ban away the Olaf as well that we saw in game number one. But I want to see Mythic Rising play with that fifth member more. Have someone else there to win these fights as five. Because Mythic Rising was close in a lot of the fights. They just didn't have that last member to do the damage needed to take the fights for themselves.
Yeah, they were winning a lot of those fights early. Sorry, towards the mid game. It was only towards the end when Big Taz started getting those last few items where they started losing those over and over. But yeah, like you were saying, It was super close for Mythic Rising. They almost had this final victory, but not quite in the end being able to pull that out. And Lysandra ends up being the last ban for the side of Mythic Rising. So that is the last Mystery ban that they put out.
This is fun. We don't see any champion identities. All we see is Wukong's portrait there in the draft. And Malzahar now is going to be the choice. Okay, that's a point and click ultimate. You just say, all right, you do not get to move for a while. However, I don't love the targets right now. Typically, you want to play Malzahar into like a short range melee carry, something like Zed, something like Yasuo, known as like a classic Yasuo counter. But right now, the targets that Malzahar has access to are Mumu and Zac. Both are not great champions for that. But I guess with the Olaf taken away, maybe they think that they're going to have Andy go to another kind of champion in a similar identity. But instead,
Ooh,
Mythic Rising
Veigar.
going to keep their distance and lock Veigar in. Yeah.
So definitely one of those very interesting compositions where you have Zac and Amumu hitting these CC abilities from far away, and then you have Caitlyn and Veigar making sure they stay safe themselves with these traps, the net, the cage from Veigar, and making
Yeah.
sure that they have that own self peel just in case as well. And Lucian,
Ooh.
okay, we'll have to
Wait a
see where
minute.
these champions end up going out, but it might be that Lucian top.
Wow. Gosh, I honestly do not like seeing the Lucian top here. It seems like you want Lucian to have a pairing with an enchanter, specifically Nami is like the go-to end-all be-all because the champion is just not strong enough by itself. Like that is some ego coming out for Andy to say we're just gonna blind pick Lucian top here, and Zaya's the answer now. Look at all these marksmen flying around in ego.
Okay. Oh,
Oh,
okay, it is
oh,
Jax.
okay.
It is
It's
Jax.
Jax. It's
So yeah, like you
oh man.
was looking forward to a double 80 carry game, top lane and bot lane, see which ones they're going. But it will be the Jax instead. Definitely that pro draft coming out again. Uh, but yeah, someone was saying that going Lucian blind into that top lane is definitely one of those very interesting picks that you never see, especially with so many counter picks into Lucian. It just makes his life a living hell if he does not have that counter pick potential. But now facing into a Jax, we will see how Lucian ends up playing that around, possibly getting the early lead with these dashes, making sure that Jax does not get close, making it super hard for him to be able to farm. But I believe once they start hitting six, once they start getting these ultimates, that Jax is just going to show up and shut down.
Yeah, I mean, it's game number 2, so everything is on the line for Mythic Rising. Remember, they are coming off of an 0-2 last night, and so we have to see if they can break the curse and get a couple of wins in their pockets. I think they had the skill, they had some of the composition as well, they just did not have the execution in game number 1 in Ego. And now with the second draft, I mean, 4 of the 5 winning champions from the first draft being picked up, 2 for each side. Zac and Mumu, Kaisa, Wukong, but also a bunch of new champions that are going to be hitting the Rift for the first time tonight. And some interesting matchups. My eyes are going to be on Lucian. Let's see what Lucian can do, and let's see if it is going to be going into the hands of Dopamine Andy top. And that's what I'm expecting to see.
Yeah, it's going to be one of those lanes of just pure bloodshed, especially Lucian needing to get that early lead, Jax just being able to get that pure champion counter ability. The counter strike, definitely a fair ability, as we all know.
Yeah, fair
Uh,
and balanced for sure.
exactly. And, Lucian just all he uses are
Yeah.
auto attack, so it's going to be super hard for him to actually be able to get out any of that damage. So, as you were saying, looking towards this top lane, we also have to look towards these junglers and making sure that they end up making their ways top lane, seeing if Zac and Wukong can be the difference makers in these fights.
Yep, and so I'm interested to see what Dopamine Andy's able to do in the second game. I mean, the Olaf was banned, and so he had to go to something else. And I'm not sold on this yet, Inigo. Maybe I'll be convinced after watching Dopamine Andy's performance. But, I mean, kind of surprised to see this kind of pick in the top lane. Even something
Yeah.
like, Alistar top I would have been more happy with, I think, than seeing this for Dopamine Andy. But maybe they know something I don't know in the second draft.
Yeah. And like you said earlier with Malzahar looking for that short range 80 carry, now we have the Lucian just picking
Yeah.
right into it. So Malzahar has finally found his worth inside of this game, making sure he's actually able to, choke out Lucian later on.
Yeah,
So
or you're
yeah,
gonna
just
pay the QSS tax, and
yeah.
that's 1,300 gold down the drain just to stop that one ability here. So I mean, the
I
blind
feel
pick
bad to
Llama
dog
here
on
is
this one
interesting.
champion, but
Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. I mean, as we take a look at the rest of the draft, I mean, a lot of I think commonalities like we're thinking here, and so plus Andy just came off of a great game. You know, I feel bad for
yeah.
the guy after having an exposed Nexus and not able to seal the deal. But I mean, some interesting champs coming in here. The Caitlyn Amumu lane is really fascinating as well. If timed properly, Caitlyn can get the trap down on the bandage toss timer, but it has to be so perfectly timed because the trap takes a while to prime. It's a very challenging kind of bot lane. And now with the dodge here, it's making me think that maybe that player doesn't even own a Mumu, or maybe they can't pick it.
Interesting. Definitely not sure exactly what happened there. Uh, yeah, apparently he couldn't pick it, but interesting.
We'll have to see if that changes here.
Okay, try number two. We'll
Yeah,
see
well,
if that makes the difference.
yeah, these
But
champions just
yeah.
gotta lock some stuff in here. So
Well,
we'll
as we let these players figure this out, we'll have to see if Dopamine Andy is able to show off on this solution. We definitely talked a lot about how it wasn't going to be the best pick, but who knows? He
Not a
did make that
problem.
Olaf look quite fantastic for a lot of that last game. So Lucian could be the same thing, just being, maybe not being the champion matchup difference, but being the player difference in the end. So
yeah.
we will take a small break as we let these champions, or as we let these players get into the game, waiting a little bit of that time, and don't go anywhere as we come back. Call it karma, 1-0, and trying to end this series as Mythic Rising tries to make the claw back to the 2-1 victory. All right, and welcome back to Call It Karma versus Mythic Rising Game 2 now. Call It Karma catching the first game, and now we're going to have a 5 point outside of the side of Call It Karma. And now a little bit of a stack coming out from Mythic Rising. But we do have to notice that something that we didn't see. We went to a break, but we didn't see that Lucian and Caitlyn are actually switching here. So Lucian is going to be going to that bot side with Soj King on the Amumu. And Dopamine Andy is going to be taking that Caitlyn into the top lane against Jax. So definitely not the matchup we thought was going to be happening here. Not that blind pick Lucian, but definitely a lot of trickery coming out from the side of Mythic Rising.
Yeah, blind pick Lucian, but like I wonder if they kind of built this in. They thought, hey, let's pick Caitlyn blind top here, or let's pick Lucian into Kaisa. Because like looking at the draft, it felt like they had plenty of time to make some adaptations here. When they picked up in that second game there, they picked up Caitlyn on 3, and they had no top laner shown. And then they picked up Lucian B5 with Vigar. So I mean, I guess they said they wanted the Lucian of Mumu lane and said, let's just send Caitlyn top. And like you mentioned during the break there too, and you go, Dopamine Andy is actually a marksman main. So we'll have to see what they can do on this marksman champ in the top lane.
Yeah, it might have been one of those ideas, and where Caitlyn is one of those very strong AD carries at the moment. So just being able to see what the matchup would have been, maybe if he just knows something different about this Jax Caitlyn matchup and is comfortable taking it in. So we're gonna have to keep our eyes again on this top lane and see if Dopamine Andy on this Caitlyn shows us something new that we didn't know before. And
Yeah, I
yeah,
would love to be enlightened. I'd love to see. And like honestly, already I'm kind of confused. I think Dopamine Andy should just be playing the bush because if you stand in that bush as Caitlyn, you get twice as fast headshots. And so if you stay in auto from the bush, you're going to be getting way more headshots and way more damage on the Lazy King and can just time those. But Andy not playing the bush at all is going to hit level 2 a little bit early as well, so that might be some more damage. But Wukong pathing away from it. Meanwhile, Zach is pathing up, so we'll have to see if Maniac and Andy can make something happen early on top side too.
yeah, possibly afraid of Wukong trying to make sure that this Caitlyn does not get the early lead that she got, or sorry, that Dopamine Andy got before on the
Yeah.
Olaf. But it doesn't look like that. So Maniac is definitely switching or missing a few of these buffs, but making sure that Dopamine Andy on this Caitlyn is staying safe and does not have to worry about the fear of Savage Kit on Wukong again.
Yeah, but
So
Soj
now
King
it's
not
just
finding the same aggression that the real me found on this Amumu early on. Soj King yet to look for one of those bandage tosses. So is just going to be farming up with Astro. But I mean, you want to be going in aggressively. Lucian is a strong early game champion at level 3. I want to see what happens because Taz and the real me, I mean, they might be winning this 3v3 when they hit it, and that's about to be coming through. But Maniac sneaking topside, this 2v2 bot side. I mean, I need to see Astro and Soj King start making something happen, and something happen soon.
yeah, as we saw, the real me on Amumu had already gotten one of these bandages, and as we're saying that, gets the bandage right now. A good little trade coming out. The second bandage coming in, the ignite, and it looks like it may be the burn down if the heal is not yet, but not quite.
Oh, but
Living with
Savage
just a
Kit!
little bit of health. And now straight Savage Kit is making sure he is known here as well, but not having just enough damage. The flash coming out from Astro, probably not necessary,
Not
but
needed, no.
definitely making sure he stays safe. So no kills go over to either team just yet.
Yeah, Real Me did a great job to get the Q auto attack before flashing out, so the aftershock got procced. That was so important because it was single digit health that Leona lived with there. But now with the pressure and the Leona resetting, it does give Maniac the opportunity to take this bot side scuttle crab early on. It's a double scuttle for the Zac, and it's going to be a full clear here. Now 24 CS, I guess, did skip one camp here, and now this blue buff hasn't been taken yet, and Soj King wants it.
Yeah, Sojkeek looking
Here comes
in,
Leona.
Maniac looking in as well. Savage actually gets the
Oh,
knockback, and he does have flash, but he's gonna have to be very careful. The real me here too. But now it's a switch of members, and Sojking having to flash over the wall to make sure he stays alive and safe. So the blue buff does go over to the side of Savage Kit, and a flash burn from Sojking. So probably actually ends up being a good trade for the side of Mythic Rising here.
yeah, burning the summoner spell. Soj
Or
King and
sorry,
Maniac got way too aggressive early on there, and it just
Alec
felt like they
Karma,
were
not
not
Mythic.
able to
Sorry.
capitalize on it. No, it's all good there. And however, it is going to be Savage Kit picking up their buff, and yeah, like you said, Call It Karma getting another advantage there just with the summoner spell. Mythic Rising trying to play aggressively and get something happening here, but that's not what you want to be doing. But Dopamine Andy,
Ooh.
I mean, twice the CS, forcing Jax under tower, like really well played, and almost already gets at least a little bit of chunk damage into tower. I don't hate to see this from Dopamine Andy. Way to go, Caitlyn.
Yeah, definitely showing us something we have not seen on Caitlyn so far this season, probably. Caitlyn top lane is making sure that Jax does not get any type of lead here. So that comfort, that ability to use his champion into the Jax lane. We have said, a few things of not being able to use that bush, but looks like he just knows better than us right now. So he is making it work out.
Yeah, I can't complain too much. It's going to reset and get that Dune Quiver early on. So I was wondering maybe we're going to see some kind of fancy lethality Caitlyn or, especially into the Counter Strike. But instead, just opts for the very standard, tried and true Dune Quiver as their mythic. And, it was Nicholas Johnson looking for a little bit of a roam. I'm kind of surprised to see Malzahar. It's level 6 now, though. So maybe we'll be able to find some kind of angle. Maniac hovering in the bot side and the waves coming into him. So there could be an angle bot side here.
Yeah, and we do have to keep in mind that Bogus is using a lot of his mana as well in these mid lane. Uh, he did not go for any type of tier, so he's going to be feeling the burn a lot, just having to force out that Q over and over. But yeah, Maniac sitting in this alcove, trying to look for Big Taz in the real me. Big Taz still having his flash, but the real me missing his from that last engage from Soj King. It
Oh,
looks like
Maniac
it
was
might
so
get very
patient.
dangerous. He hits the Q, or sorry, hits the knock, but does not hit the knockback. Misses just barely, and the big Taz gets out with his life, having to burn his splash. But definitely one of those good trades for your life.
Yep, absolutely. And there's a lot of time committed for Maniac. Not only is it time committed, but also sharing resources. The Zach actually picked up a lot of that XP just from Astro, so their level 6 is now going to be delayed. And you have to make that timer work now. Big Taz does not have flash for 6 minutes, and there needs to be a repeat gank for Mythic Rising because with so much time committed, they have to make it worth it. So we need to see how the other members of Mythic Rising can get down there. Will it be a 4-man? Meanwhile, speaking about getting numbers places, top lane,
Yeah.
Dopamine Andy,
Lazy
not
King ends
even
up
any
going in, but
idea.
walking right into the trap. Dopamine Andy looking very dangerous, but the flash coming out from Lazy King and
Oh,
not quite enough damage and just ends up falling to the side of Dopamine Andy, but he will trade his life over as well. The
Ghost.
kill potentially trying to go
Oh,
over to Nicholas. The flash coming out, making sure that Dopamine Andy does not end up escaping. Savage Kid ended up hitting it with that last auto attack, but now seeing both those members on the top side, this Drake is going to go over to the side of Mythic Rising. So a good trade from their side, seeing the potential of the other side of the map, taking this objective and even trading the 1-for-1 from the side of Dopamine and Andy.
yeah,
So a
Dopamine
big plus for them.
used both summoner spells in that, but did get the 1-for-1. And you're right, it is a big plus if you're Andy for still picking up a kill there with 3 members topside. And you also got Nicholas Johnson's flash down because Nicholas
Yeah.
flashed for the Nether Grasp there, used a flash ultimate, and it still was not enough to get the kill. And so, I mean, ultimately, that's totally fine because you also get the dragon in your pocket. It is their Infernal Dragon, so not too many stats for that yet, as it's only 6% AD and AP. But Maniac level 6 and now it's mid-side. Uses Let's Bounce. Can they find damage here?
Ooh. The Les Valve actually bounces him a little bit farther away from Bogus, and now he lives without having to burn anything. That flash burn or that flash timer not being of any consequence in the mid lane.
And a
So yeah,
lot
just
there once again in the mid lane.
ooh.
And so not
But
much.
Savage Kid is looking for it. He does have his ultimate, and it will try to use it, but not quite in time to hit Dopamine. Lazy King going underneath the turret and taking a turret shot. Almost falls. The sniper shot coming out, but the block coming out from Savage Kid. Not enough damage for either of them, but both looking very dangerously low.
Yeah, now they're going to reset there from the top side and have nothing for their trouble. Still 1-1, 9 minutes. A little bit of a slower pace game from the first one here, but just like game number 1, it is Mythic Rising out to the early advantage in the gold lead.
Yeah, Mythic definitely showing up in the top lane again with that farm difference, 87 to 43. So Lazy King is having a really tough time to keep up, and now these plates are going to go over. Caitlyn is known for one of those champions that is able to take these plates super easily with the crit, with the headshots going over to the turrets. So Lazy King, it's going to be so much harder for him to play these matchups as the items just start funneling in, and Caitlyn just becomes that much harder to actually be able to touch.
Yeah, but you mentioned that too with taking the plates early, but that solo lane too, there's so many additional resistances on the tower early on. For example, right now in the top lane, the tower is 95 armor. Meanwhile, the bot lane tower, 15 armor. So that's why Caitlyn does such a good job taking towers early on because she's bot lane. She gets the headshots, she gets the tower, and it has way less resistances bot lane. But you know, you're right, still at least 2 plates for Caitlyn, so it is still a tower menace, but didn't go down quite as quickly as the other way. But, you know, it's still going to be a gold advantage, and now has a Kraken Slayer completed. This is a great spot for Dopamine Andy to be in.
Now we see these junglers on opposite sides. The Real Me ends up going in onto King, trying to use that ultimate onto Astro, but just missing. And now Savage Kit is not actually going to be able to follow up on this engage. Wasting a little bit of time there. Real Me going in just a little bit too soon and missing that solar flare and trying to hit onto the Astro instead. So yeah, just one of those matches that just does not work out. And again, Mythic Rising, seeing the pressure on the bot side, end up taking the objectives on the top. Now, Ritz Herald going over to their side, so even more gold funneling into their pocket.
This slower paced game that we're seeing in game number 2, I think also favors Mythic Rising. Remember, Vigar is going to be stacking up the ability power just by existing and last hitting. And so Vigar can get to such astronomical values of ability power early on in these games, even from the passive at this point in 11 minutes. 82 additional AP, now 84 in their pocket. I mean, that is an insane amount of value, but now they might be in
Savage
trouble.
Kid is looking mid. Bogus getting very dangerously close. The flash is coming out from both of those, but not enough. Actually, Nether's Grass coming out. Savage Kid getting close, but not quite close enough for that last turret shot. And the 1-for-0 goes out in the mid lane. Enough damage coming out from Savage Kid and Nicholas. And now it's time for the answer back from Maniac trying to kill Lazy King. And enough damage coming out. The headshots absolutely massive, as only a cloth armor is in for Jax, whereas a full Kraken Slayer at 12 minutes for Dopamine Andy.
Who do you think you are? I am. Look at Dopamine Andy taking the plates, taking the kills, and taking the game into their hands. You say you're going to play slow, I will beat you down under your own tower. An amazing play there from Caitlyn with the help of Maniac. And this time the Let's Bounce got something done. This is going to be traded for 1 plate in the bot side, but already the tower, 12.5 minutes in, is under pressure and down to a plate in the top lane.
Yeah, you're talking about the armor increases in the top lane, but I don't think Caitlyn actually heard you and has taken 4 of those plates.
Yeah.
A plate down from every other turret except for top lane, with 4 onto the side of Caitlyn and 0 for the side of Jax. So that is a massive gold discrepancy we're seeing here, about 2K, and I would beg to question that 2K going from Caitlyn from Jax.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Dragon has started, and 5 members committed from Call It Karma to secure their second Dragon of the game. A Mountain Soul will be the one on the Rift for the second match. And this is going to be some major resistances now. And the champions I'm seeing with more of the tanky stats are going to be Mythic Rising, but they're going to be getting engaged on.
Ooh, Solar Flare ends up hitting its mark onto King, and now Savage Kit trying to look in as well, but the curse of the sad mummy ends up saving his life and making sure that Savage Kit and the Real Me is not able to continue into that fight. So one
And
of those
now here's
great
Zach.
matches
Will they
there.
be able to turn it? Oh, just the Rift Herald dropped here. 18 seconds until the plates fall. This is too late on Maniac's timer. They will not get the crash in time. So 51 seconds is typically the latest if you're dropping it right outside a tower. Oh, 55.
Actually,
They do get it, actually.
yeah,
No
they do get
attempt
it
to
close
stop
enough.
it at all. I am surprised to see Call It Karma not just step up and try to face tank that. Savage Kit was still in the area and they could have stopped the crash, but you know, hey, I stand corrected. Maniac able to get that rip down and some extra gold into their pockets.
Yeah, and that ward top lane, we have to see that Kali Karma tried to answer in the top lane as well. Nicholas Johnson making his way up, but the ward catching him out, so Dopamine Andy is able to stay a little bit safe.
No ultimates.
And now the Real Me caught out a little bit. Astro trying to get a lot of damage in, but doesn't know that Savage Kit is on his way as well. The in from Stoge King interrupted by Wukong, and now Big Taz trying to go in, but not enough damage. A misclick onto one of the minions instead, and he falls, ulting in, healing. The killer instinct ends up actually being for himself and not his enemies.
Yeah, that's a big whoopsie if you're Big Taz. I think he still thinks that he's 12-4 from the last game, Inigo. Yeah, this was a Kaisa without a mythic item available, saw blood in their eyes, and tried to execute. But like you said, the misclick, the misexecution, and now falling as well. Dopamine Andy now hitting the inner tower. Lazy King wants it, but is down 2 levels.
Ooh, the ultimate coming out from Lazy King, but he
Oh
immediately backs
my!
up, realizing the amount of damage, and the headshots come out. The ace in the hole, finding its mark in Jax's life. Now two members coming over to answer for him. Call It Karma is feeling a little bit vengeful from this Dopamine Andy. The Nether's Grass coming out early and making sure that he does not get to move. The gold going over to Savage Kit. 750 gold for that kill.
Yeah, but you can let Andy pick whatever he wants here, Nico. Give him the Caitlyn top, give him the Lucian top for all I care. This champion is showing up and putting on a clinic on the top lane matchup here. Up nearly 100 CS at 15 minutes. This guy's at 10 CS a minute this entire game. Oh my gosh, Dopamine Andy, yes, he falls, and a big shutdown in a Savage Kid's pocket. But still, this Caitlyn running the map in the top lane.
Yeah, it's super unfortunate for Lazy King. He has just not been able to get anything done in either of these matchups. The Udyr falling early to the Olaf, and now this time Jax falling to Caitlyn top. So it just does not seem like it's his day right now. So hopefully we'll be able to see maybe third game or the game 3 if we see that coming out, that he is able to make up one of these matchups and
Yeah.
make Dopamine Andy pay for his crimes.
Yeah,
But
absolutely. It might not
yeah.
be Lazy King's night, but it seems so far that it's Call It Karma's night. They're not getting quite the same advantage that they got early game, but Savage Kit has been kind of the playmaker on this Wukong. And yeah, I mean, gold is actually a surprising disadvantage. Nearly 3,500 gold difference between these two teams, and the advantage of Mythic Rising. With Dragon in a minute, I expect both teams to want to be posturing around this next objective.
Yeah, we are gonna have to see. There's a lot of good scalers on both sides with this Kaisa, the Jax, also known to be a very good scaler. Maybe not in this game too much.
Oh,
Ooh, the ultimate coming out,
oh,
solo flare,
so much
almost hitting
committed.
Andy, almost getting hit by the engage as well, but now he's being driven under turret. Savage Kit taking up a lot, and Big Taz using his killer instinct to make himself known as well, getting that kill over onto Dopamine Andy.
Both summoner spells expended and the team not in the area to help. Savage can't use Flasher. The real me did as well, but it was still Dopamine Andy who hit that gray screen. Yes, you got the second Herald's Consolation, but with Dragon in less than 20 seconds now at this point in the game, and Dopamine Andy dead for 15, there might be a small timer that we can see you Call It Karma get it, but Nicholas Johnson trying to hold the space, but the other members aren't in the area. Nicholas Johnson's in trouble.
Yeah, Nicholas Johnson ends up getting hit by the Curse of the Mummy, and now he will fall early on as well. So I guess the kill onto Domi Indy does not mean a Drake going
Yeah,
over to their side.
you're right.
The third Drake of the game going to the side of Mythic Rising.
Yeah, Nicholas Johnson was kind of there and was like, "Hey, team, the dragon spawning. We have numbers. Can we hold this space?" And all four members, after taking the Herald, Mythic Rising just ran down, took the space for themselves, and they're gonna take the dragon as their prize. Nicholas Johnson was the only one even in the vicinity. The reset timers were so scattered. Big Taz and the real me tried to greed for some damage there. Dopamine Andy's strong, but Savage Kid's in the area.
Got to see this Dopamine. Andy does not know that Savage Kid is
Goodbye.
there, and now he will end up falling as well. We're actually now being able to see the damage coming out from Lazy King, and these items are coming in. So Dopamine Andy is actually starting to lose that little bit of lead that he was building up. That 100 CS lead that he had now falling down to maybe 70 and going even lower as well as this new wave crashes in. More minions lost to this side of the turret. So yeah, it's definitely becoming a little bit dangerous for Mythic Rising now.
Hey, Dopamine, do you remember when I said you could pick whatever you wanted top lane? I said you could take Lucian. I said you could take Caitlyn. I take that back.
Yeah, it's not looking too good right now.
No, it was like 150 farm to like 70, and now it's 177 to 108. I guess Lazy's King just needed to scale back into this game. I guess they heard us talking a little bit of crap and immediately got caster cursed. Feels like
Yeah.
Dopamine Andy now, after starting out 3-1, taking the inner tower, like pressuring all of this objectives, has now just died time and time again. So King looking for something, but
Ooh,
Nicholas
flash
Johnson
coming out from
responds with
Soj
flash.
King, but Nicholas ends up trading his as well, making sure that he stays safe and not trying to reenact that that river from 2 minutes ago.
Yep, looking for something to make happen. And yeah, Nicholas Johnson does escape with their life. As we take stock of the game, the gold lead is closing in on parity now. 2 dragons secured for Mythic Rising. If we take a look at the stacks for Vigar, 158 additional ability power from the Phenomenal Evil. So some great AP coming in here. Even though he's only got an Everfrost in the inventory and some other components, has 355 AP. So this Vigar is starting to hurt quite a bit. The maximum ultimate damage, 1,033 damage on Vigar ult on a low health target. So this Vigar scaling, happy to sit in the side. And meanwhile, looks like Call It Karma trying to set up maybe a pick or a little bit of a catch here. Baron's on the table and both teams trying to posture aggressively for some positioning.
Yeah, a lot of the
Dopamine
wards
Andy's in a
being
bad
onto this.
spot. Oh.
Not quite, almost. They're looking for it, but doesn't get close enough. But now Soj King trying to, contest some of these wards, not trying to see his gold investment go to waste. But yeah, we see a lot of these wards coming out from the side of Mythic Rising, but Call It Karma is trading it back, trying to clear out, make sure they get some of their own, and make sure that this Baron doesn't go over for free or without contesting. And now it's just being able to see where this gold goes and where the game goes for these next objectives. The more it stays even, it stays good for Call It Karma. As like if nothing happens, just this gold starts to even out a little bit more. That the percentage difference starts to not mean as much.
Yeah.
And so it's on Mythic Rising to make sure that they keep this lead going and make sure they're doing exactly what they're doing right now, taking
Yep.
these turrets.
Oh
No
my gosh.
contest from the side of
Oh, Savage
Call
Kit.
It Karma. Solar Flare almost hitting, and now Savage Kid
But
ends up
man,
hitting 3 for his troubles, having the reset now too. Soj King having to use the Curse of the Mummy, but only getting 1 or 2. Savage Kid falls, but so does the side of Bogus. Maniac looking really good. Lazy King ends up getting his target onto the Lucian, and now Dopamine Andy is trying to live for his life. Big Tash flashing in, and he gets the kill as well. And now Maniac switching to his puddles, and doesn't mean anything as Big Taz takes him out as well. The only member falling for the side of Call It Karma, Savage Kid, but the 5 members of Mythic Rising falling, and now that may end up being the Baron.
they had an amazing push in the bot side, and you spelled out exactly what Mythic Rising had to do to find success. They got 2 towers, but then they got engaged on. Savage Kit with the massive engage. And is it really a game with Call It Karma if you're not seeing a multi-kill on Big Taz? He picked up a triple for himself in that fight. The mid tower's going down. It might be the Baron as well. I'm seeing some pings coming down from Call It Karma, but instead some resets and getting back on the map for the Dragon now. That was a little bit of an overstep and an overstay from Mythic Rising.
Yeah, just getting a little bit too bunched up there. And then the Solar Flare coming out. Wukong Cyclone getting 3 members with the first volley. So one of those times and where it was just a little bit too close and too much CC coming out. Those slows, those knockups. And Savage Kit doing a whole lot before he ended up falling using his full combo. So although he did fall, he was doing a lot at the beginning of that fight and making sure that it set up the rest of his team for success. For Big Taz to get those really good kills. Lazy King ending up with that Counter-Strike, getting a nice stun onto Astro.
Oh.
And now it may end up being the switch onto the other side. Savage King or Savage Kit trying not to get caught out, but it's not working. So King flashing or trying to get in. Bogus flashing forward, but not quite. Now the real me's turn to try and make sure his team sets in, but flashing out. Lazy King trying to go in, but falls over without his team. The real me trying to get caught, but almost dying. And it looks like it's the side of Mythic Rising taking this game instead. Getting that fight for the same amount of kills as the last one. Making sure that, hey, you may have won that fight, but we win this one the same fashion.
Yeah, this might not be a cocaine swap meet, but these teams are going blow for blow the entire time. 5 members now aced just for the jungler. This Mythic team has risen, and now it's their chance to take the Baron.
Yeah, it was an excellent catch from the side of from Mythic Rising. Make sure Savage Kid is not able to use that Cyclone in the best way that he could have. And then just in some excellent ultimates and making sure that they split the team in half. Just a lot of misplays going over from the side of Call of Karma and a lot of excellent catches from the side of Mythic Rising to make that fight come out. But now they have to watch out. Lazy King is looking for it, making sure that his team does not get. Soj King will end up falling here from the side of the space damage coming out from Nicholas Johnson. And now Lazy King, ooh, looking very dangerous here, losing about half of his
Oh,
health.
Maniac, you're
And
overstaying.
now Maniac's turn to go in a little bit too much. The damage from Big Taz being massive. Dopamine Andy trying to answer back onto the side
Oh
and not
my.
doing just enough. Lazy King living. The Nether's grass coming out, and it will mean that he dies instead. And now Bogus will fall as well to the counter strike. Big Taz ended up finding his mark on Maniac in the side that we didn't get to see. So four members end up falling for the side of Mythic Rising, and those are four members that used to have Baron and no longer do.
Yeah, that was a short-lived purple worm around their ankles. They tried to hold on to it, but then they wanted to fight. So much unspent gold there, and they were not able to get the kills. Like, they just had a full run, get the reset, spend the gold, and then set up the next play. But instead, Mythic Rising wanted to continue to fight. They had the adrenaline. Dopamine Andy was running through all of their veins, and they thought they could take the next fight. But ultimately, once again, it was Call It Karma who got the better of them in this fight.
Yeah, and we're starting to see Big Taz coming out with that third item very soon.
Yeah.
It's going to be one of those very good plays and where he starts becoming that absolute menace to Soch King and Maniac and making sure they're not actually able to play the game. So it was going to be up to Dopamine, Andy, and Bogus to probably try and take him down. Astro may be, but I'm not 100% sure if he will
No.
have the ability to actually pull that off.
With that build right now with the Navori quick plays as well, that's really reliant on the ultimate there for Astro to do the damage. But Bogus, like you said, Bogus and Andy, those are the two characters that are doing so much damage. Even the Collector now complete on Andy. And oh my gosh, on the Taz, look at that ace in the hole, the damage it does. The third item
Yeah.
now, Bogus, is building toward the death cap. If we take a look at that stat, sitting on 600 AP, and that's going to skyrocket after completing the item. Currently just about 500 gold away from completion, but now the inner tower under pressure, but all 10 members on the map and alive. Only one Baron buff, and that is on Astro. They do get the tower, and they look for the engage.
Yeah, we have Maniac trying to get this Lazy King, but not quite. Just jumping out of that, making sure that he stays safe, and no minions or anything for Zach to pull him back from. So yeah, just that turret falling for free. The cage doing a lot of work, being able to kite out and making sure that the side of Kala Karma is not able to fight that
Oh,
out.
Maniac!
Ooh, Maniac, the Smite God there, actually stealing away that red buff. And yeah, now we're going to see both teams back out. Probably not going to have another fight for at least a minute and a half until this next Drake comes up.
Yep, you're right. I do expect to see both these teams just resetting and getting off the map. For Bogus now on their reset, they are going to pick up the death cap, 606 AP to 821. That one completed item, Inigo, over 200 additional AP. That ultimate on Vigard now, up to 1700 damage. That primordial burst on any half health target will mean death. Bogus now has reached critical mass, and these other members of Mythic Rising are looking similarly strong. We'll have to see what this next team fight looks like, less than a minute, but the Death Bush set up from Call It Karma. Will they be able to find the pick they need? Will Savage be able to find the engage? Soj King baiting just a little bit. 5 members are not here yet for Mythic. The
Yeah,
Dragon,
Savage
30
Kid getting out
seconds.
that bone plating. But yeah, we do have to also point out that none of the members of Call It Karma have any MR aside from the real me with those Merc treads. There's no MR to actually be able to counter out Bogus here. So if he hits someone, he's probably going to annihilate them from the game.
Yeah,
But
and
yeah,
that's not to
whoever
name
in
Soj King too, because he's doing another 10% true damage from all magic damage taken. So that
yeah,
karma right there
ooh,
just means disaster.
Savage Kid almost getting caught out here. Maniac trying for the knockback, but not quite close enough for the rest of his team to follow up. And yeah, we've been seeing these fights. Whoever engages first and whoever gets that good engage ends up winning the fight. But it seems like it is up to Mythic Rising actually getting a lot of the vision here. But they are split. 3 members on the top, 2 on the bot. And now it will actually end up almost being the death of Dopamine Andy. He will get finished off, but not before Nicholas Johnson falling as well. The Curse and the Mummy hitting 4 members, but doesn't look like it will possibly save him in the end. Oh, it will. He will end up living. Lazy King trying to figure out what he's going to do here, but he ends up falling as well.
Oh my gosh.
4 members falling for the side of Call It Karma. The only one living is Savage Kit, and now Bogus is trying to start pushing out these turrets and making sure he is starting to finish off this game.
Oh, another winning team fight out of the hands of Mythic Rising, and this is looking like we might be going all the way to a game number 3. This Soul Dragon looking like it's going to be claimed. Bogus smacking away on that inhibitor. That will fall as well, and shortly behind it, the Baron Soul will be claimed. This is now anything but over for Mythic Rising. They are in a commanding lead here in the second game.
Yeah, you said at the beginning, whenever we saw this Malzahar come out, that he is mainly used for these very close engage type of champions. And we've seen him. He has actually been able to catch Dopamine Andy, but it doesn't mean anything if his entire health bar is annihilated by Bogus. Just being
Yeah.
able to kill him before the Nether's grass is able to finish off his target. And so I thought that fight might have gone the other way if it had not been for Bogus just being able to push out so much damage from that.
Yeah, press the gameplay button, Inigo, and just absolutely melted Nicholas. Once
Yeah.
that shield was gone on Malzahar and they no longer have the Void Shift, it just meant 100 to 0, and that champion absolutely melted. And I mean, at this point in the game, Bogus is only going to be getting stronger.
Yeah, it became one of those, you have a fun button, well, so do I. And,
Yeah,
we have seen Bogus having the better fun button here. And now
yeah.
we have a Lazy King on the side trying to split this out, but all 5 members are saying that, okay, we don't care, we're just going to take this purple
Oh, here's the
dragon
teleport,
instead.
though.
And now the teleport from the back of the pit, but
It's a
he
losing
will be
fight.
caught all by himself. Savage
Goodbye.
Kid taking a lot of damage before he even actually gets to use his cyclone, and he will die. So is Lazy King. Now the real me
Oh!
trying to get in the back line, but it doesn't mean anything. And now this side of Nicholas Johnson, the big shot coming out from Dopamine Andy ends up killing Big Taz, making him big dead instead. And this will be the end of the game.
Soj King is the real king in this matchup, taking down Lazy King and the rest of the members of Call It Karma. Don't call it a comeback, Inigo. We're going to game number 3.
Yeah, definitely. We also have to point out that that ended up being Soul Drake. I didn't quite actually know that until just now that I look at it. So these just absolute game coming out from the second one, the switch of sides. We were doubting the Dopamine Andy on this Caitlyn towards the middle, just dying over and over, but looks like we were just wrong. And now he came out and made sure that he was here to play.
Oh, they're here to play. We're here to cast, and everyone's having a great time. Mythic Rising broke the 0-3 streak and brought it back to tie up the series to 1-all.
Yeah. It's going to be a great time being able to see this next game come out. As we've seen, it doesn't really matter what Dopamine Andy plays. He's going to win the lane. So it's just one of those things where they have to see if they can try and win the game and just not have to worry about him as much or find something that'll work for a Lazy King to be able to play safe and be able to make sure that he does not give those early leads over to that champion. Or sorry, mainly to that player.
Yeah, you're right about that player. I mean, first I was praising him, and then I took him down on a peg, and then in the later game, it was all Andy show once again. Andy and Bogus, those solo lanes for Mythic Rising. We talked about how they out CS'd in game number 1, and here in game number 2, they out macroed, they out team fought, they out damaged, and they took the win for themselves.
Yeah, and so now that we wait for these players to get into the game 3, we're going to take a small break and see if they can repeat what happened this last game or if Call It Karma will end up getting revenge for this game too. So don't go anywhere as the score right now is sitting at 1-1. All right, and here we are again for game 3 of Call It Karma versus Mythic Rising. And now they have switched again, so Call It Karma is taking back the blue side and just feeling a little bit more comfortable on that side. And now we have that Renekton being banned out again for the first side, and Kendrick being the return ban for the side of Mythic Rising. So a little bit different order of the first side of bans, but nothing too crazy that we haven't seen before.
No, the question is now going to be, do we give Call It Karma the B1 Zac? That has been the priority this entire series. And in both of these games, that's what's been scooped up. In game number 2, Kindred, Misfortune, Aurelion Souls, what Mythic Rising banded. Here it's Kindred, Misfortune, and maybe Aurelion Soul once again. Again, if they go back to the Aurelion Soul, which I think is totally worth banning, you got to expect Call It Karma just to slam the B1 Zac. Like, that's had so much prior this whole series.
Yeah, except this time it's going to be on the opposite end. So one of those players that can actually swap it around from jungle, you can swap it mid, maybe top lane a little bit. So it's going to be a little bit more of a threat on the side of Call It Karma instead of Mythic Rising getting that Zac on their team.
Lilia.
And that
Ooh.
build, that ban will actually be the Lilia, making sure that does not go over. So making sure get a few of these picks out from the side of Mythic Rising.
Oh!
And yes, the Zac is banned away.
Do we slam the
And
Acel? Do we get to see the Acel?
From what I've told or what I've talked about from one of my friends, the ASOL does have its counters. It does have its bad matchups. So not quite one of
Ooh.
the champions you can pick first. But if you do have that good matchup, if you know any of these champions start coming out, it may be one of those picks that we start seeing. Hopefully, Call It Karma is actually able to pull it out. But yeah, Amumu being the first pick
Yeah.
for the side of Call It Karma. So one of those other priority picks that we had been seeing going in the first sides of this map, now being
Yeah.
answered back by the Nautilus.
Ooh, that's a new pick that we've seen. But yeah, Muma, as you mentioned, has been snagged up on blue in both of these last games as the second, third pick. Game one was Call It Karma, pairing it in the bot lane. Game number 2, it was Mythic Rising playing it in the bot lane. It is something that can go jungle as well, so it does have some flexibility in the draft. I always like seeing the Silas as an answer into Call It Karma's Amumu because you have that damage. And now with Caitlyn being picked for Mythic Rising, are we thinking that this might be Andy once again picking the Caitlyn top?
It could be Andy. I would be
Yeah.
very excited to be able to see that out. But like we've been saying, it is one of those flexes. We didn't even know it was happening until after Champion Select got over with. So it's definitely going to be one of those picks where we have to see it out. Again, Wukong being the only champion that we're actually able to see on Pro Draft. And Wukong is picked up for the side of Kala Karma. So they're just going back to it. Amumu Wukong staying on their side of the game.
Yeah.
Or sorry, staying inside of these picks at least. And Wukong going back to their side too. So is
And I
that
think Savage Kid
three
has found
games?
success on it. Yeah, has played
Yeah.
well, right? Like I don't think there's anything to kind of hate on that. And it is the
Aurelion
Aurelion
Sol.
Soul locked in. I was looking forward to this one, Inigo.
Yeah, I'm gonna get my dream finally for this game 3. It made me wait for it, but I'm very excited to see it. Have not actually seen Aurelion Sol. I've not played League since the new patch, so excited to see what this new Aurelion Sol actually looks like and be able to pretend like I know what I'm casting when in reality I have no idea what's going on.
Yeah, I'm gonna be reading the abilities with all of y'all as we get into this first game with the Aurelion Soul in the new patch. It's quite a significant rework. Cooldowns are crazy. I haven't even played it in practice tool. I've played against it and I've seen some highlight montages and it seems pretty busted. It's already been hot fixed once. But what do you know about that Syndra matchup? I know I'm typically supposed to be the color guy, but you said you had some insights into some bad A Soul matchups.
Yeah, I believe he does better into these melee matchups, so Syndra might not be one of the better matchups for him. But again, it is a new champion. We think we know the matchups that we're good at, but it is a completely different way of playing the champion. So we will have to see how these matchups end up differing from what they once were. And now the
Yeah,
band's coming out, Kai'Sa and Olaf as well. So taking those two champions, making sure that, forcing that Caitlyn into a position and not giving that Olaf away.
yeah, and for game number 3 as well, Mythic Rising deciding to ban the Kai'Sa, I think that is a wise pick as well. Both these last couple of games, Call It Karma, happy to slam that Kai'Sa. And as I look at this Acel versus Syndra build as well as the matchup, it does look like Acel wins against Syndra 52% of the time. So that is 1.14% higher than Syndra than the average opponent. But Acel wins against Syndra 0.5% more often than would be expected. And this is in Plat Plus on this current patch. So this doesn't necessarily account for the hot fixes that Acel has received, but As I look at some of these statistics and some of this, it's looking like nearly a dead even matchup in the mid lane. We'll have to see how these champions can execute, or these players can execute on the champions, but especially with this new pick, it's going to be crazy how the team has to play around it.
Yeah, Bogus and Nicholas Johnson, both being those champions that we're gonna have to look at into this mid lane. Not knowing top lane
Ooh.
just yet. Ooh, Xin Zhao, definitely not one of those very popular picks, but can be very strong into the right compilation. And they may, or composition, sorry, and we may have to see if that is the case for this game. Seeing the last two return picks from Kala Karma.
Yeah, it is going to be curious to see what that might look like.
Possibly Nyla. We may see that champion show out, and it looks like it
Ooh,
will
the
be.
Neela. Okay.
Yeah, so we're
Neela
gonna have to see.
Mumu.
It's a very hard engage from Kala Karma once again. This time, even the ADC is going in full engage, full melee range. So Wukong, Amumu, Nyla may see the Mount fight as well. That would be
Oh
an
my.
excellent pick into this composition, making sure that's so much harder for Caitlyn and Syndra to play the game, and that will be the answer. So Xin Zhao is gonna have his workload out for him, making sure that they try and keep this Caitlyn Syndra safe, but it's gonna be one of those very hard things to do, especially with so much engage coming out from Kala Karma.
Yeah, there is some crazy engage from Call It Karma. If you thought these last couple drafts were full engage, I mean, this one is even more so. Wukong, Malphite, Amumu, holy smokes, and Silas the last pick. I love this last lock-in for Mythic Rising, but what does this mean for the lanes? Are we going to be seeing Silas top? Xin Zhao top with Silas jungle? I have no idea once again what the draft is going to look like.
Playing this matchup so many times inside of my life, the Malphite Silas matchup. It's one of those matchups where Malphite wins a little bit earlier, but never outright to get a kill, and then just progressively gets worse and worse as Silas just is able to use that Malphite R, the unstoppable force, and just uses it so much better than the actual champion who brought it into the game. And so now it's just going to be one of those games where you chose the champion, and now that champion is ending up being your own fate onto the other side. Silas being able to take away so many
Yeah.
excellent alts. We got to see Aurelion Sol, Wukong, Amumu, Malphite. These ultimates are all so great for him to steal. So even if the cooldown is down on one, there's just so much for him to steal that it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, and Mythic Rising really drafting a single target burst composition. The ace in the hole, the it's not Scout of the Week, but Sydra's ultimate as well. You got the depth charge, right? Like so many single target. You pick a character, you kill them. However, Call It Karma drafting the AoE, the Cyclone, the Curse of the Sad Mummy, the Unstoppable Force. Neela's it's called ooh, Apotheosis. It's Apotheosis. That ultimate too. All of these AoE ultimates, even Aurelion Sol, I have no idea what her ultimate's called. But this is some amazing AoE picked, and we wanted to see Lazy King have a better topside lane, but once again got counterpicked, and I think this Malphite's just gonna try to farm and play the team fights.
Yeah, it's gonna be. It's not one of those full-on losses, especially if you get the ultimate out first, or make yours a little bit more meaningful than the
Yeah.
Silas's. So yeah, it's not all lost yet. Malphite is one of those great picks where even at zero, even at no gold advantage at all, he still will be useful for that ultimate ability. So yeah, we're just gonna have to
Yeah.
see which of these teams is able to again pull the trigger first, again pull these picks out and make sure that the other team is not able to play these number advantages for themselves and plays it for the other team as well.
Yeah, you're right about all these team fight ultimates as you named. I mean, who has numbers, who has gold, who has the kills, who's a focus, right? And that's really going to determine these fights. With this, we are going to see Caitlyn on a different character. It looks like it will not be the Caitlyn on Andy this game, but instead locked onto their actual ADC player. So it looks like that is going to be Astro piloting the Caitlyn this game. But the prediction is live as well. I mean, you've heard some of our thoughts about this third and final game. We want to know who you think will win game number 3. Currently, Mythic Rising. 100% of our channel points here. 3,700 channel points. Where's our Call It Karma fans? Will they bring it back, or will Mythic Rising take this 2-1 reverse sweep in this best of 3 series tonight?
Yeah, we're gonna have to see in which lanes end up getting the gold and which of these champions show off. Maybe not by champion advantage, but just purely by player advantage instead. So we'll just have to see once we hop into it. As these champions start playing this game, we'll have to wait for our spectator 3 minutes So don't go anywhere as these matchup is game 3, 1-1, Kala Karma versus Mythic Rising. All right, and welcome back to our final game of the night, Game 3 versus Mythic Rising and Call It Karma. Call It Karma being on the side of blue this time, switching from Game 2. And now we're not going to see the same type of, sneaky business that we've been seeing of the 5-stack coming from Mythic Rising. This time they decide to lay out a little bit more. And now a little 5-point coming out from the side of Call It Karma and a makeshift bot side protective sphere coming out from Mythic Rising.
A little bit of an interesting setup here as they have in this third and final game of the night. As we mentioned, kind of one game apiece for both of these teams. And we'll have to see here. All the believers with the channel points, we're all thinking 100% of y'all are saying Mythic Rising is going to take the reverse sweep. 0 channel points on Call It Karma. And honestly, I'm just bummed we haven't seen Karma in this matchup at all tonight.
Yeah, really it's in the name, but just not in the game. So unfortunately for us, we won't see that. We are trading out for the Aurelian Soul, finally being able to see that. So can't be too mad about it. But yeah, some of this early vision coming out from both sides and a ward coming out from the side of Call It Karma being able to spot out that uh being able to start out that Xin Zhao on the top side, making sure that they know where he is and keeping bot lane
Oh,
safe
Big
in the next like
Taz!
3 minutes. Unfortunately, Big Taz getting caught out, the root coming out as well, and it may not lead to the end of his life, but it will lead to a lot of missing
Oh my
health, half health,
gosh.
before the minions even start to die. And now he's just gonna have to burn that pot. The Doran shield only so good for poke, but not too good for full-on engages. And now just a very early
Oh my
lead for the side of
gosh.
Mythic Rising, hitting another hook. The snare, and now just so much. It's going disasters for the bot lane and even the mid lane now too. Aurelion Sol taking a lot of damage.
Soch King absolutely smurfing this level 1 in the bot lane already. Amazing early on game. I mean, Soch King did not have a great performance on the Swain. Yamumu was enough to get the job done here, but now Nautilus is landing those hooks and getting the damage down. Big Taz able to heal up a little bit, like you said. Doran's shield is the start for Big Taz, so already playing aggressively here. And they're definitely playing for this later on in the game. Call It Karma has drafted level 6 insanity here with all of their champions. So many potential ways to engage and play fight. So, I mean, we'll have to see when the level 6s come through what they can do. But until then, I expect Call It Karma just try to hold on and survive.
Yeah, Call It Karma is going to have a rough time early on. Like one of the viewers said, being able to see that Neela into the Caitlyn is just not a very fun time. The range difference just being too big. And now this Nautilus hitting these hooks and making it even harder for it to actually be able to play out. So back to full health, not having to worry about
Yeah.
this health advantage, but not having either of those pots in the bot lane for the side of Call It Karma.
And Gratefully also did not use either summoner spell, right? We're able just to walk out, and like you said, we're able to get the health back. And CS as well, looking pretty even here. It's only like a 1 or 2 CS lead after these minions die for Astro and Soj King. Savage Kid is down here, but look at the engage.
Yeah, there's going to be a match. Savage Kit making his way down. Soch King having to worry a little bit, trying possibly having to flash, but not quite, as Savage Kit ends up being the one on the other side. And First Blood comes out from NA Astro, getting these last hits in and taking two of these buffs onto his name.
Yeah, Astro with the double buffs is so strong. The range advantage already massive, but now Astro, look at this, just playing in the wave, getting the auto attacks onto Taz, and the mana no longer an issue. Sure, you got a Doran shield, but I got double buffs. Take that, Call It Karma, and now such a great pressure advantage in the bot lane for Astro and Soch King in this game number 3.
Yeah, it's going to be a super rough time. And now Bogus is also making Nicholas Johnson's life just that much worse. Hitting these over and over. And
Oh
now
my
it's time for Big
gosh.
Taz to take a little bit of damage. The real me ends up tanking up that that Caitlyn net. So helping out his ADC a little bit there. But just a lot of damage coming out. Soj King, basically, I believe he's 4 for 4 for these hooks that we've seen in lane. And
Yeah.
it's just been monstrous performance from him in this lane phase for the first 5 minutes.
And as we take a look at the other lanes on the map, I mean, as we've seen in the last 2 games as well, Inigo, Mythic Rising solo lanes just winning the CS department. A major CS advantage, top lane, Silas into Malphite, as well as a CS advantage in the mid lane. Maniac now looking to play up here Dopamine Andy, not level 6 yet. Neither is Lazy King here, but this crashing wave, maybe there's some kind of play, but I expect Maniac just to reset. Already advantages are going into Mythic Rising's favor, and they're up
Yeah, and
1,500 gold here.
Savage Kit ends up finding Bogus here, but doesn't have the support of his Aurelion Soul, so nothing meaningful there. But yeah, Maniac was looking that top side. It is hard to gank that Malphite. He is
Yeah,
going
it
to
is.
be super tanky, going that tanky build. Null Magic Mantle being the first item he gets back, so already going to be a little bit harder for Silas to be able to get these solo kills in. But not impossible once these items start coming out.
Are you thinking
Ooh.
like a Spectre's Maw is going to be kind of the rush here for Malphite? You kind of expect just try to get as much AP early on as you kind of can to survive the onslaught? Like, what's the build? I know that you're kind of the Malphite connoisseur here. What are they looking for? Maybe there's no time to
Uh,
talk
in,
about it.
in a second, yeah, Real Me is getting the bandage toss, but not the bandage toss that he wants. Unfortunately, fortunately him, he will end up living there. But also Silas, we have to point out that he may be building Rod of Ages into this fight. The
Wow.
Catalyst being the first item coming out. So not that full damage that we were possibly expecting coming out from Silas.
Oh my
But
gosh,
yeah.
the hooks just can't
And the
miss.
hook again. Big Taz taking a lot of damage. The Ignite coming out, but not quite enough damage to be able to fall, but enough damage to make him lose this wave as it comes in.
Yeah.
And it's just a disastrous lane for the side of
Oh,
Taz
he's
and Real
staying.
Me. Yeah, Astro and Soj King being
No, they're not
so
staying.
monstrous, and now that will be the first Drake going over to the side of Mythic Rising.
Yeah, so I do want to go back. It looks like it is going to
Yeah.
be an Aegis as the top lane pickup now for Malphite. So maybe that's signaling going right into potentially a Jack show, potentially a Radiant Virtue. Like, what's kind of the itemization here into this matchup?
Uh, Unfortunately, there are no really good items to be able to build into this composition. As the troll I am, I would just say, screw it. Just go full AP Malphite and be able to one-shot that backline.
Yeah.
Uh, but unfortunately, he's not doing that method. So we'll probably be able to see this Jack show come out. Uh, I'm not 100% sure, but I believe Aegis of the Legion does build into Iceborne Gauntlet.
No, IVG
Correct?
is just
No?
going to be Kindle Gem and Sheen, and the cloth armor
Ah,
upgraded into chain vest. So it's not
yeah.
building
It
into
may be
that.
that
And are you thinking
it may be
Radiant?
that
Can you go
Jack show.
Radiant here? Jack show? Yeah.
He might go Radiant if he wants to play for the team full on. Jack Show if he wants to play for himself, trying not to fall as much.
Oh,
But
but
yeah, we're
now it's
seeing Soj
dopamine.
King end up
Oh,
catching Savage Kid on the outside. The ultimate stolen out from Dopamine and now used on the other side
oh,
and not enough damage. Oh, I lied. Just enough
what?
damage to be able to kill
Dopamine's
Savage
alive.
Kid. The heals coming out from
Oh,
Dopamine just keeping him alive, but not quite enough to be able to live. And now that will be a fall for the side of Lazy King trying to save his jungler, but falls losing his life as
wow.
well. So 2 for 1 for the side of Mythic Rising here in this game.
Yeah, and now here comes the Nautilus back to the bot lane. Astro's got to play careful until he arrives. There is some kills advantage early on here, but no level 6 yet for Soj King. Pings are coming out, and maybe they can look for a 2v2, but Taz also level 6 has the Apotheosis available, and they
Yeah.
are just going to back away. Amumu really needs to have Curse of the Sad Mummy before they look to fight.
Yeah, as you were saying, he didn't have 6 just yet, but he hit it once he got into lane. So they do have to play very careful for Soj King, looking for these hooks, looking for the death of Big Taz. Now that he has that extra massive amount of CC on his name. And just looking into this top lane again, Dopamine Andy is having that CS lead now with that trade going over a huge amount to his side. And
Yeah,
it's just not looking too good for the side of Call It Karma.
I've been impressed with Dopamine Andy all series long, not only from their performance, but also their champ pool. They started with Olaf in game one, and then played Caitlyn top in game number two, and then game number three, the Silas? Like, this guy's got a champion ocean, and Real Me, after game number one on the Amumu, is looking a little bit shaky in this third and final game for the series.
Yeah, it's looking very dangerous. Soj King only missing one of those hooks so far that we've seen. And now we're starting to see some of those trades come out in the mid lane and start to understand why Aurelion Sol is not the best counter into into a Syndra. Although he didn't get the counter pick, but we're starting to see once he stands still, Syndra's just able to get that cancel over and over, as we almost saw just now, but we've been seeing over and over in that lane.
Doge King.
And we're seeing Soj King trying to go for a dive here, but doesn't look like they understood that Savage Kit was there to help them out. Big Taz here to finish
Ooh.
off the kill onto Astro, and Soj King living with just a sliver of his life. And Aurelion Sol is looking for the hunt, but not quite enough going for that.
Wow, but at least the kill secured from Big Taz. But now Soj King wants it with Maniac.
Ooh, Soj King going in. Big Taz is down and out, but
Oh!
not before he returns the favor, thinking you hooked me, but I'm actually getting the kill here. I am the threat. Trade 1-for-1 inside of that 2-for-1 fight.
While blocking all of the auto attacks on the Xin Zhao as they go in and try to get it. But Neela able to deny all of that damage, and so well played to pick up a second kill for themselves. Coming back to lane, nearly matched blow for blow with the Astro Caitlyn pick. And both of these champions in the bot lane have so much early pressure, but ultimately Maniac seems to be getting the better of these ganks early on over Savage Kit.
Yeah, we have a 3.5k gold lead going over to the side of Mythic Rising. And this Rift is only going to make it that much more as it gets one plate into its name, possibly two. I think it just was one.
Yeah.
But yeah, this Drake is coming up soon, so we're probably going to see another fight coming, especially with this Malphite edging a little bit towards this mid lane. Probably just, yeah, just going back towards it. But yeah, this Drake is probably going to be spelling out another team fight coming out.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And so we have to take a look at ultimates and kind of survey the scene here. Bogus is still 30 seconds till the unleashed power is available. Everyone else has their ultimates available. It does feel like Bogus really getting the better of this matchup into Aurelion Sol. Soj King now gets the early engagement with Savage Kid is here too.
Another hook, but yeah, Savage King being on the side, and he does not realize he is actually in the trap set for himself, and he will end up falling. So that kill
Yeah,
going
team's
over,
not there.
Aurelion Sol stealing that one away from his team, making sure that he's very well appreciated inside this game.
Yeah. Also an
Yeah.
active participant here. Way to go, Starboy.
Yeah, and the Drake is probably going to be going on to the other
Astro,
side. The ultimate
Astro
coming
now.
out. Ooh, a lot of damage. That exhaust coming out and making sure that Bogus is not able to do a whole lot in the 1v1 kill. That participation award coming out with his own actual work.
Ooh.
And now they also get the Drake as well. So a massive win from the side of Call It Karma.
Yeah, they're still at a gold deficit, but a big win off of that fight. They secure the dragon. They get the kills. Now Nicholas Johnson 3-1 on this Aurelion Sol. An amazing spike for them when they get this reset off.
Yeah, it's definitely a big gold swing for them. Not quite enough to even it up, but another hook actually coming out from Soj King. This time, no Savage Kid to be able to equal it out. The real me trying to fight this out. Still holding or having no Curse of the Mummy, so he will end up dying trying to save his ADC Big Taz. And so now that's
Yeah.
another kill going over to the side. Thankfully, off the back of Soj King, really hitting these hooks over and over.
Soj King, the aggression does not stop from this guy. Keeps looking for the hooks like you named over and over and over again. Do we see those anchors landing? The dredge lines are finding their mark and kill real me now. As you said, without Savage Kit in the area, this was all Mythic Rising's bot lane. At 14 minutes, they take the tower. Plates have fallen, but the gold lead now, a big advantage in the bot side and across the map for Mythic Rising, but now
Ooh, but Bogus is
Karma.
actually caught out. Savage Kid said, I may not be bot, but I will be mid. And
Oh,
ends up killing the Bogus mid. Syndra falling now 30 seconds on her timer. And
man, there's a bogus mid and a lazy top laner in this game. It feels like here. I mean, looking like they're playing a little bit bogus in the mid lane. That's her second death now of this game. Unable to find any kind of return kill. They've had the pressure, but now it's getting punished.
yeah, and we do have to look top now. Rod of Ages is going to be stacking, and Malphite did not go for the Radiant Virtue. Ended up going for that Jack Show. So trying to stay a little bit healthier inside this 1v1. It may help out. Haven't played this matchup with the new items just yet. You know, trying to expand myself and my own champions, but I believe he's definitely going to be able to stay very healthy inside of this matchup and not have to worry about dying too much. But unfortunately, he won't ever have like the kill pressure that, you know, Malphite is known to have with that ultimate.
Yeah. So just to name a little bit while we have a little bit of pause in the action, this Aurelion Soul pick, for those that have not seen it on the Rift yet, for the ultimate that Aurelion Soul has, 110-second cooldown, but if you notice that champion has an icon next to their health bar, that means that their ultimate has transformed from Falling Star into an ability called the Skies Descend. So you have to gather 75 Stardust, and it transforms, and then from there, not only does it do damage, but it also does damage in a larger area, it knocks up the targets, and it will slow enemies hit for 50%. So it's basically an evolved form of this ultimate that they need from getting Stardust. And around these big timers for like the dragons, if they can have the ultimate available, it'll do so much additional damage and crowd control for the team by knocking them up. So I know this isn't a champ that like has been around for very long, but Aurelion Soul in team fights with the Skies Descend available will absolutely destroy team
Curse of the
fights.
Mummy actually ends up coming out, a flash forward from the real me, and he ends up going in with the bandage cut, but it will mean his own death. Now living, trying to coming out, that Falling Star doing so much. Nicholas Johnson doing so much in that fight, and the unstoppable force coming out from Lazy King, making sure that NA Astro is not able to just kite it out. And so 3 members end up falling for the side of Mythic Rising, only 1 for the side of Call of Karma, and another victory for their team fight.
Yeah, Caitlyn said it better than I could. All 5 ultimates used, but now Bogus picks up a bonus one on the back end of that fight. But so many ultimates expended. Caitlyn picked every single one of them. And oh my, that is the power of these team fight ultimates in the 5v5.
Yeah, just massive ults. Nicholas Johnson doing so much. The Curse of the Mummy doing a lot on its own. Although it may have been a little bit too early, it did good in making sure that he was able to live and be able to re-engage later on and make sure his team stayed healthy. So yeah, just these ultimates are massive. These massive game changings. And so yeah, like you said earlier in before this game started, being able to watch these timers, being able to watch the timers of these spells and seeing if which spells they can avoid being hit by and which ones they just have to suffer if they use their summoners for something else.
Yeah, as we take a look at the stock of the game, as this third dragon hits the map in just a matter of seconds, it looks like it is Nicholas Johnson who has found the power in these fights. 5-1-2 on this champion. Ultimates now back available in just seconds for most of these players of Call It Karma, but it is going to be Mythic Rising, getting to the objective first, getting the damage down, and securing their first Hex Tech Dragon now on the map. And as I take a look at the side of Mythic Rising, there's not a clear carry yet kind of emerging for the squad in this third and final game.
Yeah, we're gonna have to take a look on top side. Dopamine Andy trying to take on this
With 4
one-on-one against
members.
Lazy King, but not quite having the things to end up living and falls for his troubles. The Curse of the Mummy being so much here. Nicholas Johnson showing his face and saying, "Hey, remember me?" And it was just a fall for his life.
Yep, and now it is going to be a late collapse, and maybe they try to take the fight. Here
Yeah.
comes the
A
teleport.
collapse. Maniac trying to get in, using that ultimate and looking at Lazy King very hard, but not quite doing the damage. Aurelion Soul being the target now, and Lazy King will be the secondary, seeing which one will end up getting that kill. The
Oh!
real me trying to hook in and make sure that he can try and turn this team fight around, but not realizing he had no health. And now the fall from Maniac. Bogus
Teleport
looking
from
like the
Andy.
next target. Sage King trying to make sure his mid laner stays healthy, but not quite enough. Falls for his own life. And Dopey is back, wanting more Savage Kit. Trying to look at Bogus, but gets knocked back, and then he will fall his life. Dopey Andy taking that kill for himself.
26 kills in 19 minutes, and Ego, this is the game 3 we wanted to see.
It is a bloody battle from both of these sides, and it is a great game to cast. Yeah, like you said, more kills per minute than there are minutes in the game, and
Yeah.
it's so great. So great
Oh,
to
it's
see it.
amazing to see. And it felt like one player died, another one showed up. Dopamine, Andy injected that dopamine right into my veins, got the teleport in and cleaned up the fight. Yes, Astro fell early on, but Bogus picked up the kills that they needed to keep their team in this game. 13-13, the kills are even, but the gold is not. Still about a 3,000 gold advantage for the side of Mythic Rising in this third and final game. But with 3 minutes until the next dragon, the Baron now spawning at 20 minutes, and Sojkin getting caught out, Call It Karma could
Yeah.
still win this match.
Soj King doing a whole lot. The Aftershock making sure he stays healthy, and Syndra knocking away the Real Me and Lazy King and keeping their support alive. Trying to take out this extra vision, knowing that is warded. There we go. Taking out a few more of these
Oh,
wards.
real
And the
me.
Real Me is looking for the Curse of the Mummy coming out, but not enough. And he ends up falling before the fight
And he isn't
actually ends
here.
up happening. Sage King as well. Both supports gone, but so is Savage Kid. Can the Lazy King ends up finding his target. Astro absolutely falling to that ultimate. The unstoppable force really showing off the power. And now it is just a run away from the side of Mythic Rising. 3 members falling for theirs, only 2 for the side of Kala Karma.
Andy was in base the entire time, had no way to fight it, but now he's back and wants to play.
Yeah,
Ooh, will not be
Lazy
able to find
King, the
Andy.
speeds ups from that shard is just too strong. Syndra being so slow. Bogus not realizing that he's just absolutely losing 30% of his
Yeah.
movement speed. I believe 30%, maybe a little bit more. But yeah, the chains not being able to land from Silas.
No, so I was not able to find it, and they were not in the fight for the initial 5v4. And when you had more numbers, we saw what Call It Karma could do. They still wanted to take the team fight, but it was not going to be enough on the opposite side. And Mythic Rising, we were not able to respond to it. We know that Dopamine Andy is that key playmaker in all of this entire series to make these fights go in the side of Mythic Rising. With a minute and a half now till the next dragon, I want to see the 5 members from Mythic Rising start to group up, play the fight together, and look for cohesive picks on primary targets. In this next fight, Nicholas Johnson is the player you need to see falling early on. Otherwise, Call It Karma might have the ultimates and might have the team fight to continue to take this next fight.
Yeah, and we had to point out that Lazy King, he's built the MR he's needed to survive this Dopamine Andy.
Oh, dopamine!
Ooh, the flash forward from Dopamine, making sure that Big Taz is almost falling, but the dash is out, and
There's
they
no
end up being
5
the targets as
members!
well. The massive wombo combo from the side of Kali Karma. It was a great fight. Lazy King still holding on to that unstoppable force, and 4 members falling from the side of Mythic Rising, making sure that they do not look like a Phoenix. They will not be rising anytime soon.
No, Inigo, you heard me just say I wanted to see all 5 members there at the next objective in the next team fight. But what happened? Bogus was not there. The Baron now claimed from Call It Karma. Bogus teleported in and immediately died. Dragon in 15 seconds. Call It Karma. The primary members on the map already rotating on down to this next objective. And no members from Mythic Rising able to contest. Yeah, you called it out yourself. It felt like the wombo, the combo, it came through. The ultimates were used. That results in a Baron, a Dragon, and a gold lead for the first time this game for Call It Karma.
Yeah, the complete swap of what we thought was going to happen in this game ends up being a massive victory for the side of Kala Karma. Lazy King showing up on this champion, not giving away that early game lead and making sure he stays valuable inside of this with that unstoppable force. And as I was trying to point out earlier, he is starting to get these MR items, which means
Yeah.
he's allowed to switch over a little bit to this armor, and making sure that Maniac and Astro are not able to play the game either. Bramble Vest being a super important item, especially into the Silas. Make sure that those auto attacks aren't meaning quite as much, making sure that Xin Zhao cannot use that Gore Trinket to the full extent of that healing ability. So yeah,
Yeah,
these are some extra abilities that we have to be able to watch out for.
and critically, there's not any armor penetration built or even magic penetration built outside of the Sorcerer's Shoes for the members of Mythic Rising. So if we take a look here, it's like Caitlyn went Infinity Edge, second item, does not have a Last Whisper, does not have the finished component as well. So without the LDR, without the Lord Dominic's regard, it's so hard for Astro to get through this tanky member of Lazy King. And you have so much damage. Nicholas Johnson now sitting on 3 items, 2 items as well completed for Big Taz, 5 members with a Baron buff as well. And now it feels like they're just able to march on in. Maniac now a little bit caught out. We'll see if a 5v5 can go in their favor, but still 1 minute with this Baron buff. I want to see Mythic Rising playing on this fight after that Baron has expired.
Yeah, it's going to be extremely hard for the side of Mythic Rising to be able to win these 5v5 fights. They may have to
Yeah.
just try and keep the side lanes into their favor. and push through that because these fights have not been looking their way. This
No.
real me flashing and getting Curse of the Mummy, Unstoppable Force, Cyclone from Savage Kit, just these abilities are absolutely massive to be able to play into.
Mhm.
And it's just making it so impossible for them to be able to win these fights.
Yeah, there's not good ways for the side of Mythic Rising to be able to like kill these members. Like you said, there's so much CC and like just Mythic Rising is playing on the back foot here. Yeah, you got some great answers and some great responses, but like look at Dopamine Andy versus Lazy King in the top lane. Like it's a slugfest, but Dopamine Andy is losing it.
Yeah, Lazy King doing a lot of work inside of that matchup. I wasn't sure. I didn't think that he'd actually be able to win it, but he is showing up and doing so much damage to Dopamine Andy. And now he has to play on the back foot inside this 1v1 sideline.
Yeah, but it's a 4v4 now. The Baron has expired in 2 minutes until the next dragon. 4 members of Mythic Rising hovering in this bot side. They won't be able to get a catch yet, but they are looking for something. Now it's going to be Bogus looking to get a reset off. Lots of gold in the pockets of these carries, but So Jing is looking to go.
Yeah, hook coming in from Sochki, but not
Oh,
any
teleport
follow-up
behind!
coming out. But the real me ends up looking for it, getting the Curse of the
Look at
Mummy,
Malphite.
getting two of the members, but no one's quite there to really answer it up. And the real me is looking to take out Asher, but not quite. And now some falling. Bogus ends up falling as well. Sage King as
Alive!
well. And Astro is just hitting on the side. Don't be Andy going on to Big Taz, but not enough damage to be able to finish him off. And he will end up falling without the kill. But Maniac
Maniac!
is trying to answer it back, gets one of the kills, and looking for two more, both of them being extraordinarily low. A lot of damage coming out from Lazy King. Not enough armor in his name just yet. And he will fall. Now looking for the
I
side
want a
of
ward
Nicholas
though!
Johnson. He may
Want a
not be able to
ward!
find him before, and he does, getting that massive shutdown, 700 gold in his pocket. And yeah, the team fight that they were looking for ends up being in their name, losing almost all their members, but not losing Maniac to finish off the last three members of that fight.
Maniac, the only surviving member from that team fight. All 9 others on the Rift had fallen, but wind became lightning, and Maniac kept the team fight alive and took home some big shutdowns for Mythic Rising.
Yeah, a great fight from them being able to take that down and get the fights that they were looking for. It was looking very close. The real me was looking at Astro, but not enough damage to be able to take him down. And then Astro was just able to free hit for quite a while before anyone was able to finish him off with Maniac, or sorry, with Savage Kid and Nicholas Johnson trying to look at him. Uh, but yeah, it was just a rough time trying to look at that fight go on. And yeah, we'll see if they're actually able to repeat it for the streak that's coming up in just 10 seconds, probably 15 right now. And
Yeah,
yeah, a lot
less
of the
than 10
vision
seconds
coming out.
here. It is going to be a big fight and lots of ultimates coming up, but I still do favor Call It Karma if they have the ultimates available. But they do not need this dragon. They are giving it up in exchange for the mid lane prio. Yes, the dragon is claimed by Mythic Rising, but the mid lane tower now under pressure. Lazy King taking it up themselves. The inner claimed by Call It Karma. Now all 5 members looking here. This is going to be a 5v5 team fight.
Yeah, Sage King looking very close. Unstoppable Force hitting two of those members, and the real Meek joining as well. So NA Astro is not in the fight to even begin, and Big Taz getting a massive ult as well, doing a whole lot of damage. Savage Kid finding kills on his own. Dopamine Andy ends up falling, and Maniac being the last member, but he is not as lucky this team fight and not able to finish out these kills. Only Big Taz falling for a big gain in the side of Kala Karma.
5 members all dead, 30-second death timers on the majority of these members. Astro's up in 15, but a wave is topside. 4 members of Call It Karma still alive. Will they look to end the game right here?
This actually might be the end. I don't think Kalen will actually be able to end up any of these members. Amumu posing so much of a threat, and Malphite as well. And this may actually be the fall of the Nexus. Caitlyn now having to try and 1v4 this base invade, but it doesn't look like it's going to work. The real me came taking her off, and the Nexus is falling. 2-1 victory to the side of Call It Karma.
Call It Karma lost game number 2, but took the third game and took the series for themselves. It was too short for Mythic Rising. They did not make the win for themselves, and Call It Karma with the team fight wombo combo takes home this series.
Yeah, it was a great fight seeing both of those teams hit it out, trying to duel it. and we ended up seeing our winner in the end, Mythic Rising, not being able to rise to the occasion and call it karma, ends up taking that one to their own. A lot of damage coming out from our man, Lazy King, being able to show up, and then I believe me as well, just doing a whole lot of work,
Yeah.
making sure that NA Astro was not even in that last fight, taking him out before he's even available, and then Nicholas being able to come down with that massive ultimate,
Oh man.
finishing off Astro and just absolutely annihilating that fight.
Yeah, Nicholas finishing that game 11, 3, and 11. The most damage dealt in the entire game. An amazing series from Nicholas Johnson. And all 10 members in this series, it was close. It was hard fought. Both teams playing that 5v5 team fight composition, but ultimately Call It Karma got it done in this series, taking the series 2-1.
Yeah, it was a great time being able to see these teams fight it out, seeing that top lane, just watching Dopamine Andy. Have to give a lot of credit to him. He was putting in a lot of work on all of these champions, but that Silas was just not the answer that we thought it was going to be. So, unfortunately for them, he was not able to carry that game on his back. So we will just have to look into the playoffs that should be coming and seeing if they can make their redemption run and try and make it to the finals.
Yeah, we'll have to see. Playoffs are just around the corner for both of these teams, and we'll have to see what they can do. Mythic Rising came up a little bit short in the series, but both of these teams do have their eyes set on what could still be to come. A couple of disappointing losses these last few games by Mythic Rising. Mythic's an amazing org that has some great teams playing in style esports, and we'll have to see what they can do when the playoff run comes around.
Yeah, well, this will end our night tonight style esports watching this massive game in between Kala Karma and Mythic Rising. A win for Kala Karma going 2-1 against their opponents. So we will see you on our next stream that comes up, and it will have to be a good night from us.
Great evening.